story of her.
Live in NASCAR's backyard, 16 drivers take the chance at running for the first ever Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series title, and it begins here from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway, where the KBueno Racing Network welcomes you to the 15th race of the 2025 Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series season and the opening race of the brand new playoffs. And welcome to the coverage tonight. So happy that you are joining us on this Sunday where, alongside Francisco Bacalhau, I am Kenneth Bueno. Well, Francisco, we're here. It's taken us a bit to decide the 16 that will fight for an inaugural Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series title, and it begins right here at Charlotte. Not often do you see playoff races, playoff series overall begin here at this mile-and-a-half, but it's a very fun track. It's a very big track that really tests discipline, tire saving, and much more for the drivers. Probably the best opener we'll see for a playoffs, maybe setting the tone for this round of 16. And that first round, so volatile in a mile-and-a-half, a 2.5-mile rectangle, and then a road course, just to add up the spiciness for the elimination race. Things do settle off and taper a bit through Texas, Bristol, and Darlington. The round of 12, round of 8 isn't as crazy. Maybe the round of 8 might be second best, but this round of 16, the first 3 races, probably the most wild in terms of diversity and possibility for chaos between tonight, next week, and then the following week on June 15th over in Watkins Glen, New York. So that sets the stage for this inaugural Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series playoffs. 16 drivers fought their way here 2 weeks ago at the virtual Daytona International Speedway, and this is how it all unfolded. A wild one in Daytona Beach, Florida. All started with the front row leading to the green flag. Ethan Fonseca Moreno and Stephen Harlow taking the green flag for the first time. And Francisco, a relatively clean race. There's James Kunkel stepping up to the front. He would lead a couple of laps before the first caution came out. Just as the opening stage was closing down, there's Robert A. Moyer Jr. getting tagged by Justin Erb, who got tagged by Warren Kyle Keith. That would leave Kip easily with just his second stage victory of the 2025 season, but it was all about pack racing, all about drafting, and your friends as you find them. We saw a lot of drivers and teammates working with each other well.
The outside, and it was basically like glue. They could not get separated off, and this led us to that final stretch of the race. We saw green flag pit stops playing out. Warren Kyle James Kunkel among others that pitted first, followed by Lawson Peel and the rest of the lead draft that pitted together and actually came out ahead multiple seconds. Keith made a last second charge with that group that disintegrated itself in turn 2 and gave him a chance to make the attempted winning pass off of turn 4.
And here it was, Keith to the outside, Banks making contact with Lawson Peel and right to the line. That was nearly 4 wide, by the way. Closest finish in Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series history, probably the closest finish I've seen as an iRacing broadcaster. 1/1000th of a second, may have been even smaller of a margin than that, but Peel walking away with his 5th career dropping the Hammah Cup Series victory and first at a super speedway. Remember, last time we were at Daytona to kick off the season, he had finished second to the inevitable winner, Timothy Stubblefield. So with all of that settled in the regular season, this is the playoff group that we find ourselves with heading into tonight's opener from Charlotte. 16 strong, led by Lawson Peel, the most playoff bonus points out of everybody with all of his wins. Steven Stempien, though, not too far behind at about 15 points behind the current standings leader. And then basically from 11th all the way down to 16th place, from Stephen Harlow down to Chris Progar, Francisco, all even at 1,000 for the cut line.
All even down there below the cut line, which makes it all the more to get those points and get as many as possible, given the fact that you're all on the level field. So whoever can get the most stage points and the best result here tonight can get themselves in a better situation. But even those with a race win or a couple stage wins, look just how tight it is. Really, from Stempien all the way down to Chris Progar, only 12 points in it. Lawson Peel's the only one who can claim a comfortable advantage. Stempien is just a little bit higher than everybody else, but he's still only 12 above the cut line. And anything goes wrong in either of the stages, and he's immediately tossed into that cut line area. So for everybody that isn't the number 9 car tonight, it's going to be huge to get a really good stage run and get those top 5, top 10 results here tonight for Lawson Peel. Obviously, we're not concerned about his pace and his ability to get those finishes. He's probably going to be in, and winning will advance you into the next round.
Stages mean a ton, and if you look at this grid, 7 of the 16 playoff drivers have won at least one stage this season. The other guys that haven't won a stage have at least won a race in Timothy Stubblefield and Craig Parks, both of those coming at super speedways. The rest of them have been able to grind their way through this regular campaign, 14 races deep, and now they got to reset and try their way to a championship later on this season. It's going to be a scrap between those guys 11th on to 16th, but we saw just how close it was between Richard Swavely and Chris Progar just to squeak into the playoffs. Some missing drivers in Casey Knighton and Chris Cabot helped levy things a little bit and made their journey to the playoffs just that little bit easier. But even then, with a new winner that was still at the cards at Daytona before we decided that race, there could have still been an option of either one of those guys being bounced out of the top 16 before we got into this race. So thankfully they're here, all of them with the same current goal when we get down to the finale later on this season at Homestead Miami Speedway in mid-August. But for right now, Francisco, we are in NASCAR's backyard. All of the teams based here in Charlotte, North Carolina, some of them outside near Mooresville, but Concord is the host for this racetrack right here, Charlotte Motor Speedway, 1.5 miles big and just about 2.4 kilometers long as well. 24 degrees of banking in the corners, and a lot of drivers will tell you this is the typical cookie cutter 1.5 mile track here in North Carolina that will test you with tire wear and is also one of the more narrow 1.5 miles we see on the schedule.
Yeah, it's one of the more narrow 1.5 miles on the schedule, but it still can get pretty wide as far as the grooves you're going to be running here tonight. Here's a lap to show you a lap around this racetrack and just how bumpy it can be with the surface. It's already got some good age on it. You want to see drivers getting all the way down to that blue painted double white line on the inside of the racetrack. Got a lot of grip down there. You get off of that white line in the corners and you could get pretty tight on these corners. So very crucial to stay around there, get it around the outside, down the back straightaway. Same thing, get it down to the bottom. We'll see grooves widen out a bit. Guys could look a little bit higher up to get a run and build that momentum up, especially when the night falls upon us in the second half of the race. But all in all, Kenneth, that's a good lap around to this racetrack. That is 2.4, whatever you said it was.
2.4 kilometers, 1.5 miles. But yeah,
I still don't know.
A lap you still put together that was wonderful, by the way, hooking it down to that very bottom of the racetrack. And in the service tent that we'll see tonight, and from what we've seen in prior Charlotte races through other leagues with this next-gen car, not only the bottom is viable, you can run to the middle. We've seen guys run very much near the outside safer barrier, and they've been able to catch speed, make it work over a long run. So there could be the very big chance of drivers experimenting across this 1.5 miles. And with the current conditions we see as the drivers take the grid for the first time, it basically will be a challenge of finding grip whenever it matters through our multiple stages here tonight from Charlotte Motor Speedway. Well, drivers are right behind the iRacing official pace car where the starting grid is ready. And for all of us, we are ready to bring you trackside and take you through the starting grid for tonight's race from Charlotte Motor Speedway, where it is career pole number 4 for California native Ethan Fonseca Moreno. He'll take the pole with a 29.876. He'll lead him to the green flag first with his teammate and one-time winner this season two-time winner rather, from Pocono and Nashville, Steven Maggio on the outside looking for a trifecta here in 2025. Back in row number 2, pair of playoff competitors, and it all starts with Category 5 Esports' Zachary Hall. Several runner-up finishes, has yet to find that magic puzzle piece, and that's a W. He's going to look it from 3rd. Ross Harlow, the 16 car, rolls off on the outside in position number 4. Back in row number 3, other playoff drivers include Stephen Harlow, commanding his 11 Chevrolet tonight, and Phoenix winner Eric Schaefer going to try to go for his second win, and one that will advance him into the next round from P6. Back in row 4 is the Steven Stempian car from 7th, Warren Kyle Keith, just 1/1000th of a second short from his first DTH Cup Series victory 2 weeks ago at Daytona. He'll look to avenge himself from 8th place tonight on the outside of the row. And then on the outskirts of the top 10, or just inside of it, 9th place is Chris Progar, who barely squeaked into the playoffs 2 weeks ago. And so too did Richard Swavely. His number 32 car starts in 10th.
And Justin Erb will be rolling off from the 11th place position. James Kunkel in the 42 will be in P12. 13th goes to playoff driver Kip Easley, and Cedric Hunter for Category 5 Esports in 14th. 15th goes to Brad Phillum in his number 19, and Craig Parks rolls off from 16th. Once again, Lawson Peel, like his usual self all season, will be the first not to take a time in 17th alongside his teammate Brandon Banks in the 18th spot. Alex Muscarella will be in the 19th position with Casey Knighton in the 20th spot, and rounding out your field is the 77 of Kevin Roy in 21st. Very notable here, Kenneth, not that big of a field here tonight. Mostly all the playoff drivers are here safe for Timothy Stubblefield, so it's 15 out of 16. That means Stubblefield's going to most likely find himself in a must-win situation in either of the next 2 races, and that also means everybody's going to be looking for those green playoff banners here tonight. There's our stages for tonight. We got 50, 50, and 100. That's the first time we've really seen a lengthy final stage in a while, it seems, is on these mile-and-a-half racetracks. And it's going to possibly play out to some potential green flag pit stops in that last stage. If we get green flag runs, Charlotte for that. We saw that in the NIS races here just a couple weeks ago when they did the Coke 600. And I know I was in the same split with those guys on the front row, and it was a interesting race. Unfortunately, none of us were able to get it, but I know Moreno and Maggio know their this racetrack. They've given us some classic battles in history.
And Maggio searching for his 3rd win. Moreno, who has captured 4 poles up until now, he's going to try to look for his first win, and it may come here at Charlotte. He's one of the strongest drivers here at this specific mile-and-a-half track. A sea of green. Following behind 2 rookie drivers in Moreno and Maggio. They'll lead the field out of turn 4. Let's go playoff racing for the first time from Charlotte. Here we go. Solid opening lap. Maggio Moreno continue to lead the field down to turn 1. Playoff battles for 3rd. Zachary Hall and Ross Harlow in their battle to turn 1. We saw just a bit of Harlow falling back through the cracks, and so did Stephen Harlow as well to the inside of the racetrack. Hall was able to take control, but now Ross Harlow, that Chevrolet all in black, decked out to the outside lane. He'll take over the 3rd spot as the BBR duo leads them back out of turn 4.
Hall clears for the 4th spot as you see Warren Kyle Keith trying to hang it around the outside as some cars will be hitting the outside wall off of turn 4, and we'll see that through most of the evening. Cars can get tight and get into the wall, especially in turn 4. Could damage their race cars. We know it caused trouble here in the 4-wide playoffs, and numerous guys, especially Nicholas Baumann, got very tight, got into that outside wall, and costed himself a chance at making the championship round. And guys, if they're paying attention to that race, if they watch our notice that turn 4 is going to be chaos corner here tonight.
It is very narrow up there in turn 4, and it a wall that comes at you quick. You see just how many drivers scrap up against that safer barrier. It is a place where many guys have found trouble either from rear tire spin or just that right front cooking and sending the driver up into the barrier. But Warren Kyle Keith trying to make use of his Goodyear Eagles early in this run. He'll try the inside here on Ross Harlow in the battle for third. Things have settled out behind them though. Stephen Harlow now commanding this group of at least 5 to 6 cars, many of them playoff runners, and they're all just scattering across the exit of 4, and they're snapping a huge hit to the outside wall as Harlow remains on the outside. And Keith, I think this race is one that he's going to try and prove himself at, Francisco, because after last week's heartbreak, when he thought he just about won that race, crossing the start-finish line first, only concede Lawson Peel via his left view peripheral, him sliding through the grass, and Keith thinking he won that race until timing and scoring said, yeah, he was the runner-up. 1/1000th of a second was the difference between Keith and the winner Peel at the end of that race from Daytona. And just knowing how close he was to the victory 2 weeks ago, the first thing he can do is look forward to the playoffs and try to open this one with a bang.
Yeah, I don't think there's that many more things that can happen to cause a bigger heartbreak than what happened to Warren Kyle Keith at the finish at Daytona. Just in your mind, you're not even thinking Lawson Peel's in it, just seeing him in the grass, and next thing you know, it's just by the literal smallest scoring margin that we're allowed to even track by going to the third digit instead of 4 digits. So it's just absolute heartbreak for Warren Kyle Keith, but he's going to definitely take that and give it some momentum and try to earn it and get another attempt here at Charlotte and try to get himself a spot into the next round. That's the next best thing he can do. And you see he's attacking, looking to that outside, which generates momentum around here. And he's going to try to use it to get around that BBR duo that are going to be feisty all night long. You see the top 4 really kind of put up a gap of about over half a second clear of first, who's gotten himself up into 5th. And Maggio doing an excellent job of defending early on. I think he might have gotten in a little bit, so Warren Kyle Keith will hang on to the inside and could to complete the pass here in turn 1.
A little funny relation between Keith and Steven Maggio a couple of weeks at Daytona. When that finish happened and drivers were still trying to figure out how close of a finish it was and just how small the margin was between the nose of Keith's Toyota and the nose of the spinning Lawson Peel and his Camaro down to the inside of the racetrack in the tri-oval. Maggio was one of those drivers who kind of screen recorded everything, put it in a paint tool, and just tried to find the exact amount of pixels that separated the 2 cars at the start-finish line. And Maggio with that struggling race car there out of turn 4, he'll drop 2, so he falls to 4th. Ross Harlow, that bright green playoff banner on the top of his Till Valhalla Project Chevrolet, slides into 3rd. And how about the first proper battle for the lead? Car number 78 peeks to the inside through lap 9.
Attacking early, we'll see what that does for his tires here. It's only lap 9, and we saw Moreno. He's doing good defending now. He's known for excellent defense, not just here at Charlotte, but generally speaking. When Moreno really tries to put on the defensive effort, he learned a lot from Sergio Perez in his Red Bull days, and he's trying to put that to use here early on, and he'll hang on to the top position. For now, you see Progar stays in the 5th spot ahead of Stephen Harlow. Steve Dempin in the 7th place position, and James Kunkel down to 10th as he's going to have Zachary Hall, Richard Swavely, and notably Lawson Peel, who's already up into 13th, looking to try and crack up into stage point position.
And remember, these playoff drivers, all of them highlighted in that bright green playoff banner. They're also noted by the bright green numbers with the dark gray banners in the background on the top end of the screen with that horizontal ticker. That's where you can find your favorite playoff driver as they run here through the first 11 laps in stage number 1. Once again, secondary look, inside charge for Keith. And again, Moreno will try and fight hard through that middle lane. It was part of what helped him dominate at the end of the race at Charlotte right here in the 4-wide racing series, and he was able to stay in the middle, play a bit of defense, and let the other drivers kind of figure out where they would go, either from the inside or the outside. But look how much of a difference there is on speed through corner entry. Moreno trying to back things up, Keith trying to play it aggressive, and now it's opened the door for Ross Harlow. Take a peek to the inside at turn 3. That's the battle for second.
There might have been contact in turn 2. It looked like Warren Kyle Keith might have gotten into the back of the 87 in turn 2, and Moreno did a good job of hanging on to that car. Now they're side by side behind him. That's what he loves to see. Magic down to Progar closing up to the back of him, but Moreno knows exactly how to defend, how he wants to defend. He feels that these drivers are trying to push a little bit too early on these tires, wants them to burn them up and keep the track position. That way he can eventually start to pull away in these next 50 laps. You see the dive there to the inside of Warren Kyle Keith, nearly cuts off the 16. Keith drifts up and he makes contact with Moreno.
Final touch coming out of turn 4. It backs Keith up to the inside of the racetrack. Now it opens the door for Harlow and more contact back in the road. Steven Stempien is taking a beating and a half to the back end of this top 10. We saw him slap the outside wall in 4 not that long ago. And through the quad oval, finds trouble in this fight against James Kunkel. Keith has dropped back. He'll settle through the 3rd. Now Chris Progar charging underneath, looking for the pass down low, and it's denied at the stop.
And Maggio had gotten tapped sideways off of turn 4, which is what set up everything that happened to Stempien. So we'll see with the replay on the right-hand side of your screen to show you what all transpired. There's the onboard from Stempien. There's the contact of Progar and Maggio up ahead. Checks them all up. Stempien tries to go around the outside in the quad oval, just gets a bad angle and hard into the outside wall. It's going to damage his car.
It's very easy to find a bit of a bad angle there on the outside of the racetrack, and so that's what happened with Stempien. Although you're full throttle, you still got to turn the race car. It's not a typical straight here at these quad oval configurations through Charlotte, Atlanta, Texas. I mean, you name it. And now Progar finding a bit of that very, very dangerous outside barrier. Here comes Stephen Harlow, peek to the outside, while Maggio has fallen back to P6. His teammate is under fire from Ross Harlow. Battle for the lead off turn 2. Ross Harlow has it.
He's got the advantage. Moreno's going to try to get the side draft down the straightaway. Looks like the 16 might almost get clear, but this is where Moreno, even though he's on the inside, we see the outside much favorable. You can see the tire difference there between the 87 and everybody else. He's able to hang on to the bottom. Unlike everybody who was trying to pass him, they just can't make the bottom work, but he can. As you see side by side, that's Stephen Harlow moving up into 3rd. He gets past the 78 of Warren Cal Keith. So now it looks like Harlow gets a great run through turns 1 and 2, and he'll clear for the top position. He didn't get into the outside wall, so he'll have it for sure. As there you see the onboard with your race leader and playoff leader, as he has taken over the race lead here on lap number 17, and nobody's been able to pull at Charlotte. As narrow and how much brakes you have to use here, the draft is just so effective, and you're just able to stay tucked up to one another.
There's the onboard look from Harlow Chevrolet. Here comes Moreno back down on the bottom shelf, looking to find some sort of rotation through the apex, and he may just have it. So again, fight for the lead is reignited, but here come the Harlow's working together on the high side. Ross right in front, Stephen Harlow right behind those two Memorial Day themed race cars, as Stephen finds trouble right into the outside wall. I think just overcooked the entry to turn 3. And this Chevrolet backs all the way up. Here comes Keith. A look to the inside as the field continues to stay mostly nose to tail through 19 laps. Ross Harlow, the race leader. And in the last mile-and-a-half race we had this season, it's been quite a while, Francisco. The last time we raced at a mile-and-a-half typical intermediate track this year was all the way back in early March, where Harlow had stomped from 26 on the grid to a podium finish, in which Brandon Banks ended up winning that race, helped him get to the playoffs for 2025. But ever since then, Ross has found himself doing pretty well for himself. Only 2 finishes outside of the top 10 since. That also includes the regular season finale 2 weeks ago at Daytona, where he just missed out on a top 10 finish and ended up in 11th. But a pretty good track record for Harlow, who has stepped things up as of late, entering these Droppin the Hammah Cup Series playoffs, and now he's got the lead and probably smiling at the view right behind him, Francisco, because it is side by side, multiple rows deep, and now it's all cleared as Moreno takes over second once more.
Yeah, we had 2 traditionals. Kip easily goes through the grass, had some contact and help to go down into the grass. He saves it and hangs on through the turf. Good save there by Kip Easley, but to finish the point, Kenneth, there was only 2 traditional mile-and-a-halves on the regular season. We got 5 of them if you count Atlanta as a traditional mile-and-a-half.
Banks sideways with Zachary Hall down the back straightaway, and this surely will bring out the yellow. Not that much damage for the 2 cars, and I think we're going to stay green through 21 laps.
I think it's because everybody had gotten by, so no cars were going by, so iRacing deemed it as no caution as the battle for the lead continues. So we have multiple things to try and get replays of here. As you see the slide job by Moreno. Here's what happened to Kip Easley off of turn 4. He just some neck code
now the
contact.
leader's around. Moreno is spun off of turn number 2 with by Ross Harlow, and the drama is building up here. Now the first caution is out as Moreno slides to a halt right above the blue and white line separating the apron and the racetrack. Our first yellow flag after 22 laps, and that is a saving grace for those 2 cars right there. Hall and Banks, who saw their races nearly taken apart from no yellow flag thrown out in that first run. Moreno ends up spinning from the lead, and finally we'll be under our first yellow all night long.
It took long
Oh
enough.
my
There was plenty of attempts to get that caution out, so we'll have to go to replay and see everything that happened. We have several things to cut down and break down on, so we'll try and get everything. And here's the most recent one of them, as it's Moreno and Harlow. As you see the slide job there, and then Harlow cuts back to the inside, and it just gets into him, and it's enough to spin him around.
And luckily, Moreno keeps it out of the inside wall. Great job of saving that Chevrolet. And that's all you got to do. Just lock it down and hope that nobody else gets in you. But for the most part, Moreno was able to keep out of harm's way. I think there's just a bit of damage there on the left side of the race car, but I think that may just be the glare of the sun. However, we will have pit stops. Not all of them are in, though. Maggio pits from 9th, and he is the current leader on this pit road sequence. There's Chris Progar, there's Casey Neiden, James Kunkel, Eric Schaefer, Craig Parks, Brandon Banks, Zachary Hall. Of course, their slides off of turn number 2 going to give them enough of an incentive to take their first tire set of this race, but maybe fuel only here for Maggio. There's Moreno finally entering pit road, and it is about 9 or 8 cars strong that do not end up on the pit lane. They think it's too early through 24 laps, just about halfway here in stage 1.
A little bit early, but we'll see how it shapes up through these 200 laps. So here's a replay of the with Kip Easley. Progar on his outside, angling the corner exit. Easley on the bottom, and you see just some slight contact. The 8 drifts up. That sends him around, and he was able to save it. Moments later, just after the recovery, Brandon Banks was involved in his fair share of trouble. So here's the 5 car racing with the 23 of Zachary Hall. And off of the corner, there's some slight contact as Hall drifts up, then around goes the 5 and the 23. They do a relatively good job of saving it. The 23 then gets an extra tap there as they both drift down the racetrack, but nobody else is showing up to the scene, so no yellow flag by iRacing, but they were saved a lap later by the contact between Ross Harlow and Ethan Fonseca Moreno.
Honestly, got to credit Hall and Banks for keeping their cars straight. Charlotte turn 2 is a pretty dangerous area of the racetrack because that inside wall comes up really quickly if you're spinning off the corner, and most of the time you travel down the banking, and a lot of guys go nose first into that safer barrier. But with Hall and Banks being able to whoa their cars up in enough time to save it, and most importantly, even though there was some contact between the two, not picking up any significant aero damage. You know, you look at the Toyota Camry for Zachary Hall, brand new paint scheme tonight. It looks relatively clean, and you could say the same thing for Brandon Banks, who has rejoined the field from 11th. Didn't take as much time as Hall did down pit road, and his PaulsCars.com Chevrolet looks relatively unscathed. So for the most part, the 2 playoff drivers involved end up with a saving grace with that yellow, saved by the bell, if you will, through our first caution of the race, halfway through the opening stage of the event. However, there is damage to Ross Harlow's right front. You can see that bit of a dent there on his Chevrolet as they're coming around through the back straightaway. Not sure how much damage that will be for Harlow and how much that will affect him down the long run, but it's something to eye down, especially since he did not take the effort to come down pit road. He will lead this race halfway through stage 1 with Steven Stepien, a couple taps to the outside wall, but he's been able to survive. He's on the top side of the opening row. Warren Kyle Keith fought for the lead early on, could not get it, slid to 3rd, and that's where he's going to be on the restart. And Lawson Peel rolled off 17th in this race, but typical Lawson Peel fashion, always finding his way to the front. Pace cars down. First proper green flag restart of the race. Harlow and Stepien, the 2 teammates, take them through the Geico restart zone. Green flag, and there's wheel spin already in a spinner. Cedric Hunter will take several others down with him to the outside wall. And just as quickly as we get the green, we get the yellow.
And that's 3 straight Charlotte races. We've seen a restart or start of the race feature wheel spin like that. And you see multiple playoff cars are involved. Justin Erb, Cedric Hunter, and Kenneth. We saw this in both 4-wide races here, but this time it's on a normal restart instead of the initial start. Cedric Hunter involved in the wheel spin incident. We'll get replays here to demonstrate all that once again, but it looked pretty clear. Just wheel spin, and this time with warm tires under them because they did not come down pit road. Looks like the 20 was the first to break sideways, and they get a piece of Richard Swavely and Cedric Hunter. You see the 20 there, he gets sideways, and then they all just kind of collide together. Fortunately for everybody else, doesn't look like nobody besides those 3 get any kind of damage from that, but not ideal.
It's not ideal for Richard Swavely in this race, who has been trying to put himself at the front in Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series for this season. And here's his look from the incident. Nowhere he could go as soon as Herb and Hunter got collected. That's 3 playoff drivers involved. What's that, 5 playoff drivers that ended up in trouble through the last caution in this one? It has been wild already. Pandemonium. Steven Maggio getting a piece of that as well. And I don't know what it is, Francisco, with these restarts here at Charlotte, or initial starts. It seems like whether it be cold tires or a restart through first gear and the revs are too high, the rear tires spin too much, we've seen so many problems, not during normal race conditions, but mostly just getting up to speed. And the same thing happened with Harlow there off the restart. He was able to gather the car and get it collected before either a driver got into him or he just lost control of his Chevrolet. But he also could have been another casualty in our most recent yellow of the race.
And Maggio is one of those drivers that we can expect to contend for this race win. So he's gonna try and get as much damage repair as he can. He didn't take tires on that last pit stop. He just sat there, much like the car is right now, taking fuel or doing something. But now he's definitely getting some kind of damage repair to his race car done. He's going to re-enter the racetrack here with everybody else, and that's going to be, you saw the 45 jumping like that. It's actually going to be a very crucial thing if we get pit stops later on in this race. Even under caution, cars, if you exit too low on the racetrack instead of close to the actual apron line, you can risk the chance of spinning out from just how aggressive the bumps are if you're not careful. Cold tires, you have no chance of catching it once it jumps on you and gets sideways.
And there's Richard Swavely, his car damaged, and he's going to try and get his car repaired for right now. Remember, he was one of those drivers alongside Chris Progar who was hanging on by a thread as they were getting into that Daytona race. They were fighting with Casey Neiden and Chris Cabot to point their way into the postseason this year. Luckily, both of those drivers didn't show up. Progar and Swavely just needed a driver who's gone to victory lane already, or someone already locked into the playoffs to win, and thankfully that happened with Lawson Peel. So it put Swavely and Progar in, and there is the damage still left on the front end of that Toyota Camry. And the heavy metal Jesus Motorsports Camry is going to try and get himself recollected and pick up with the field for their next restart, which should come at lap 31 as the field comes across at the turn 1. Actually, will be lap 30 between those two drivers. Well, we talk about the mile-and-a-half history of this inaugural Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series season. Well, this is what happened the last several times we gone racing at the mile-and-a-half tracks. Of course, this is at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Came down to a near overtime restart between Lawson Peel and Steven Stepien. Peel was able to step away. That would be his first win of the year. That was race 2 right after Daytona. Great battle for second to the start-finish line. Peel would celebrate his first of many of the wins that he would have this year. That was back in early February. And then we transport a month later, exactly 1 month to the day, Chicagoland Speedway, our second and last mile-and-a-half race until tonight. And that's through the regular season. Another overtime restart, this time between two teammates. And it's Brandon Banks who comes away with his first career Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series victory, outlasting Zachary Hall. And in a statement race, Banks was able to walk away with the dub that locked him in to these Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series playoffs for 2025. So now we're here at Charlotte, already off of some trouble between playoff runners, and now we'll have two green bannered cars on the inside and outside of row number 1. This time a much better restart. Keith slow to get going. Green flag, a lap 30.
He spun them a little bit, but not nearly as aggressively as everybody else. Peel gets into the wall as he peeks to the inside, tried to think about going 3 wide, but they'll stay 2 by 2 as Ross Harlow gets a great jump of nearly 0.2 of a second. He's going to have them side by side. Looks like Cal Keith gets a great run off of turn 2, tries to clear Stempien on the bottom, but Stempien charges into the corner, and he's going to remain side by side as they're all trying to catch up to the 16 of Ross Harlow. We'll see what tires do further back as you see some almost 3 wide off of turn 4. And Ethan Fonseca Moreno is already up to 8th, trying to recover nicely as we go 3 wide for the lead.
And here through the middle, Ross Harlow playing defense, Stepien down the bottom, and it's a power move. Warren Kyle Keith, say hello. Brand new race leader at lap 31, and there's more pandemonium in turn 3. Moreno sends it deep, he's on the fresh tires, puncturing through the top 5 off turn 4.
He put on an incredible crossover move to go to the inside of 3 wide. Harlow tried to cover. Moreno nearly went to the apron, trying to get underneath the 11. You see you have to check up for the 88 there, who went all the way down to the bottom. Peel's going to creep back up to the outside, so this is going to cost time with those better tires, but already done a great job up to P4. And you see, you just see how much those tires mean, especially right now in daylight. If he can at least clear the 9 car, he'll get to the inside of Stempian off the corner, who gets into the wall. Peel will give the 87 the draft, so Moreno just has 1 car left to take the lead.
It's a difference of 24 laps in favor of this car right here. The pole sitter Moreno sends it far in turn 1. The lunge to the outside wall. It all pans out. Brand new race leader, the man who started this one, up at the front of the field. Moreno takes control. Keith and Peel will try to decide it for second. And the next fresh tire car in line, how about Chris Progar? Took his gamble for the first set of Goodyear Eagles fresh on the pit road, and now he'll step up into the top 5. Bit of a slip there by Stempian, was able to gather it up before it got real nasty out of turn 4. And now the battle for P2 heating up. Peel dials up the bottom side on Keith, aiming for the crossover off of the second corner, and no can do. Lawson Peel will take the runner-up spot. They're nearly 3 wide behind them through the top 10.
And Eric Schaefer's another one of those drivers that took tires, and he's up into the top 5. As you see, Progar dives it underneath Schaefer, and he'll clear for that position. Now he tries to turn underneath Cal Keith. What a move there by Chris Progar. Schaefer gets into the back of the 78 to actually keep them side by side.
Shows you how much of a difference tires make here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Progar is able to lap Keith like he's standing still, and Schaefer may just do the same thing. They have pulled away from the rest of the group that's led by Steven Stempian. That has a bunch of playoff drivers. It goes all the way back to Brandon Banks, who, remember, was involved in our first semi-spin that did not bring out the yellow. And Banks is all the way back in 13th. He'll try and settle himself out in the midst of a very contentious playoff group. And going into tonight's race, we saw the gap leveled at 1,000 between Stephen Harlow back in 11th, and then, of course, Chris Progar back in 16th. I'd say it's a solid call here, Francisco, by Progar, the Wisconsin native. Why not try and take this gamble in the second half of the opening stage and get some well-needed points to put yourself above that cut line right after this one is over at lap 50?
It's been a straight strategy call for him, and then on the other side of it, we have multiple playoff drivers trying to race for that 10th place position. Right now being held by Kip Easley further up ahead as he's racing Cedric Connor, but you see Brandon Banks, Ross Harlow, Justin. A couple of these drivers have all been in trouble already in stage 1 as they will go 3 wide with the outside. What a move to get around both of those Banks and Ross Harlow machine as Harlow continues to drop positions with that damage. You see Banks is trying to recover from that incident early on. And Maggio has not done that much progress improvement himself. He's down in the 16th place. You see a little bit further back, there's Craig Parks as well. So numerous playoff drivers are trying to battle for these stage points that get awarded out in 12 laps.
And so far, seems like the points in the bag of Moreno, but Progar, Peel, Schaefer, and Harlow, your current top 5. Stephen Harlow, that is, as he tries to settle himself out. Things have calmed down right behind them into the top group, where Stempian, Ross Harlow, and a bunch of the other guys were trying to put themselves in a good track position sense, but so far it seems to be all in the hands of those fresh tire machines. Here's the battle inside the top 12. That's Brandon Banks leading the group. There is Ross Harlow, and Talladega winner Craig Parks right behind him, that bright orange Tide Chevrolet, very reminiscent of the Darrell Waltrip colors that took him in victory lane at the Daytona 500 way back then. And Parks will dial up the inside. We'll take a peek onto Ross Harlow, and I think there was some sort of fall off with Ross Harlow here as of late. He hasn't been able to find as much speed, and now things are heating up inside the top 6. First time that Keith's been under any major fire since the drop of this green flag. Zachary Hall, Cedric Connor, the pair of teammates to the inside in turn 1.
And Eric Schaefer pounded the wall off of turn 4 big time on that most recent lap, and now he's got Stephen Harlow on his outside trying to take over the place position. Oh, Harlow missed the corner there, and he's going to actually lose the spot to Schaefer. He was blinking.
So Schaefer makes his move to 4th, but regardless, this will be some good points for all of those. I mean, top 10 will get playoff, or we'll get normal points. Playoff points will be awarded to the stage winner, in which Moreno really doesn't need them. He's a non-playoff driver just trying to go for wins here in 2025. And there goes Stephen Harlow back to the inside to fight for that very spot of 4th place. And Schaefer will play some good defense on the high side. Drinking Bros Racing making it 2 out of the top 5 so far. And there's Harlow, he'll back out. Justin Erb, how about the big time pickup after the squabble there on one of the restarts to the green flag. Ended up spinning with Cedric Hunter to the outside wall and catching Richard Swabley. His car's all fixed, and that U.S. Air Force Chevrolet back to the bottom shelf. He'll try and search for 4th place with 8 laps to go in stage 1.
And it's been a good move up for the 20, despite the damage he got from hitting the wall in one of those. And he's going to clear Schaefer for the 4th place spot. And on the right side, you see the battle for the points position. Steven Stempian has fallen all the way back to 10th place, and Kip Easley has been hounding him, trying to take over that position away. These stage points, we talked about it on our pre-race, it's going to be ever so important to get those stage points, considering how tight it is. Now they're side by side for the position.
And how many times, Francisco, have we seen Kip Easley in this exact spot, fighting for that very last spot for a stage point? I mean, there have been many times in which he's succeeded, lots of times in which he's had to defend very, very aggressively, and now it's him versus a DTH member in Steven Stempian in their side-by-side battle for that last spot. And for Stempian, probably wouldn't be the sign of the end of the world for the Massachusetts native, because he has some of the most playoff points. If it's not Lawson Peel, he's got at least 12 bonus points to his favor, 1,012 points, second in the playoff standings coming into tonight. Of course, that's thanks to his 6 career stage victories in 2025, but obviously will be a negative if he's not able to score points with 6 laps to go in this stage as we cross the line. Easily gets the benefit off of turn 2. Stempian still has a bit of time to respond, and then there's the battle for P6 underway. Auction up, Harlow, Hall, battle off turn 4.
And this is battled just on the outside of the top 5, as Schaefer losing out to Lawson Peel right now. Peel's trying to charge up on the outside of the 3 car. Actually, the 3 car getting by Lawson Peel, excuse me, as now the 23 of Zachary Hall has charged his way up into the battle. He gets alongside turn 2, and there's his teammate Cedric Hunter to try and give help. And Hunter was involved in our last caution, wheel spinning, a part of the wheel spinning incident off of the restart. And now he has driven his way up into 7th. Harlow tags the outside wall there once again. And as we get 4 laps to go in this stage, these are going to be very crucial points. Every position could matter at the end of Watkins Glen, and that's a road course race, meaning there's less at your control there in that race than there is in some of these oval races. So you want to take advantage of these stages and events.
And you think about the 2 drivers here fighting side by side in Stephen Harlow and Zachary Hall. They are some of the strongest drivers over the course of this inaugural season, but still, even after all of their success, all of the good finishes, they haven't been able to find a win. And even with that, you know, you look at Timothy Stubblefield and Craig Parks, they got those automatic playoff bonus points for winning at least 1 race. Obviously, none of those playoff points went to Hall or to Stephen Harlow, because neither of them, I believe, have won a stage here this year. So they are put at the very back end of a long line of very strong competitors with, of course, Lawson Peel, Steven Stempian, Ross Harlow, and the list continues on. But with the many runner-up finishes we've seen from Zachary Hall this season, including a runner-up in our last 1.5-mile race of the season at Chicagoland, you'd think he'd be a little higher in the top 16, but no, he's got to scrap just as hard as every other driver, 12th on back, those above and below that sacred cut line to get into the next round. But so far, good stuff for Harlow and for Hall. Great run out of turn 2 by the driver on the inside. And Newport, North Carolina native will take a step down low. Heel getting inches close to that outside wall. And Zachary Hall may just be able to take away 5th here, just as we're on the end of our first stage of the race. It has been a walkaway since the changeover from fresh tire to old tire. Moreno has pulled away, and there's that gap, a 1.5 seconds back to Chris Progar, who will be the biggest winner off of this strategy call. Rest of the field still have to come in for fresh tires, but for right now, it will be another stage victory. 3rd in the career for Ethan Fonseca Moreno, stage 1 winner from Charlotte.
It's 1 lap to go.
Oh, well, there's still 1 more. Well, it looks like I thought it would be the beginning of lap 50, but there it is. End of lap 50. Moreno should walk away with it. Kip Easley has pulled away from Steven Stempian, and so that battle for that 1 last spot inside the top 10, it appears that will not be a point of conversation. Stempian may just get swallowed by the likes of Brandon Banks and Craig Parks, the 2 Chevrolets running nose to tail just on the outskirts of the top 12. There's the finish, and there is the stage victory. The points in hand for Ethan Fonseca Moreno, his 3rd career stage victory of the season. He's been able to pop out, and he still hasn't found the way to win. And there's the battle for 7th all the way to the line. Kip Easley should get the final stage point And there it is. I pulled a Marty Reed there, Francisco, just calling it a lap early, but I guess with the gap that we saw, it almost looked like the stage was going to be over by then. But Moreno is going to pick up the iRacing official pace car, and now the fun part, we get to see where the strategy comes out in all of this, even though a bulk of the guys at the front have one less tire set.
Better you than Ethan Fonseca Moreno on the race lead.
That's true. I'd rather do that in stage 1 than, I guess, call the victory a little bit too early. But Moreno will pick up the pace car. Here comes the rest of the field. But like I said, biggest winner of all of this has to be Chris Progar. I mean, he's the guy way below the cut line. Obviously is leveled with most of the guys coming up to 11th place in the standings. And that obviously does help. Any switcher position equals 1 point. So that will really shake up things in the top 16. But you look at the position that Progar was in, nearly getting eked out of the playoff picture from Daytona. Had a pretty solid race, and with the Casey Neiden and Chris Cabot cars missing from the action, Progar was able to step in, and now he'll try and maximize his opportunities. I think he's done it well here at Charlotte through the first stage, despite some of the early bobbles from the 7 car. He'll take the field along with everyone else, following Ethan Fonseca Moreno into pit road, and we'll have our first set of pit stops under yellow by basically the entire field. We had that very interesting split between Moreno, Progar, and a ton of other guys. This time, wholesale service through lap 53.
And don't be surprised, we could see some 2-tire calls here with how tight the setup is.
A lot of guys will choose right side tires. That will go up first. Left side tire jacks up next. Lawson Peel appears to get away first. He'll try and beat Justin Erb off of pit road, but no one can challenge Ethan Fonseca Moreno. How about nearly 3 wide there between playoff drivers in the battle for 3rd place off the pit lane. So it's Erb, Peel, Hall, and Progar, the playoff leaders inside the top 5, while non-playoff threat Moreno continues to lead this race. And honestly, you think about it, Francisco, the very fun part about stock car racing and racing as a whole when you implement a playoff system is that you have to still fight against non-playoff competitors because they're going to be out there to win the race. By the way, there's the race off pit road. Not really a challenge for Moreno at all. Here's in clear skies, but just a little close between Schaefer, Erb, and company. And I believe Eric Schaefer might have also just gotten a pit road speeding penalty. He's back to 15th.
Yeah, he's going to have to start the next stage at the back like he did at the initial race start, which started with that EOL that we forgot to mention, but he rolled off the grid towards the back, and he's going to have to do it again in this stage, but he was able to get away stage points in that opening run, so good job for him. We'll see if we can talk to Moreno before we get a chance to...
Well, Moreno will pick up everyone behind the iRacing official pace car, and we don't see Moreno right now, so maybe we won't get a chance to talk to the California native, but it is his 3rd career stage victory, his most recent coming at Daytona. That was a stage 2 win just 2 weeks ago. And just kind of talking about that point that I'm going to wrap up now, the difference between a lot of other sports and racing, in which through a playoff format in all other sports, the teams that are not competing for the championship, they're not going to be out there on the court or the field because it's only between the playoff competitors and the teams. But in racing, especially here in stock car racing, all of the drivers still enter. They're all still trying to go for a victory, all still trying to prove themselves, and that includes guys running for the championship and those that are not. So I don't know if it's a bit of a bothersome situation, Francisco, in which Moreno is out here as a non-playoff competitor, kind of stealing playoff points, if you will, that could be awarded to a playoff guy. I don't know if that bothers the championship 16 runners here, but for right now, no one's been able to quite stop that Red Bull Chevrolet, the colors of Connor Zilic in his couple of starts through his Cup Series career that's happened here in 2025. And so Moreno will take the field off of turn 4, electing the top side for the front row with TOW Racing's Justin Erb on the inside trying to react. It's Erb, Hall, Peel, and Hunter, the rest of the top 5 behind the non-playoff Moreno. Quick stage 1, couple of cautions, but we ran it green to the end. Moreno captured the points. Stage 2 underway from Charlotte.
And a great launch from Moreno to take over the race lead single-handedly and cleared. And now it's Justin Erb who's able to stay in second. He gets ahead of Zachary Hall. Side by side with Lawson Peel for the 3rd place position. Cedric Hunter in 5th, trying to see if he can help Progar's down to 6th. And down in the running order, we already have Maggio trying to creep up back into stage points position. Had some damage earlier on in the run, which kept him down in the running order for most of the first stage, but he's already side by side 10th.
And here's Peel docking the inside on the North Carolinian of Zachary Hall. Only man on the outside here through turns 1 and 2. He'll follow in line his teammate Cedric Hunter. That bright pink Hello Kitty Toyota Camry. One of the unmistakable paint schemes of this Droppin' Hammah Cup Series season. He'll ride in the top 5, and so far everyone's still trailing Moreno. No big moves off of this restart in comparison to a lot of the other restarts we've seen so far in this race, where plenty of action was coming around through the top 5, mostly through the top 10. Our first side-by-side battle is back out in 10th place. Two teammates going at it, Kip Easley and Brandon Banks. And then how about the Talladega winner and Craig Parks up high? James Kunkel in that red, white, blue American-style Toyota Camry through the inside. This is our first race of the season since Memorial Day weekend, and through Memorial Day weekend, that was the Sunday right before, and that would have been the first race of the playoffs. But of course, the league admins and Steven Stempian decided that they didn't want to host the race during Memorial Day weekend when everyone would be focused on the festivities of the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600. Lots of drivers either out traveling for those races or just spending time with their families. So they decided to pick it up a week later, starting the very first day of June this year. And so a lot of the drivers are still on that Memorial Day spirit, honoring the fallen members of our service in the United States and putting out the red, white, and blue in honor of our fallen heroes. And one of
Stephen Harlow with a mechanical issue.
Oh, and there's big time trouble behind off turn 4. Stephen and Ross Harlow among those involved. And that may be race over for Stephen Harlow. His car is torn up off of turn 4.
He had a mechanical issue, Kenneth. I was on board with Maggio behind him, and the car darted right immediately. Actually, it was not a mechanical issue. He got loose and overcorrected it.
And there's his reaction, obviously frustrated from the cockpit of his sim racing rig, hands thrown up. He didn't know what to do there. And another caution thrown here at Charlotte. This time it takes away a very strong playoff competitor. So here's how it all happened off of turn 4. Remember the sea of green that you're seeing on the playoff banners. There is that white, red, and black POWMIA Chevrolets. He runs high. Maggio's right behind. Oh, and Francisco, he just catches the apron there off of turn 4. Caught the paint to the inside. And not only did he take out himself, of course, Kip Easley among those involved. And that is
Banks gets
huge damage for a bulk of the playoff competition near the back.
Banks got some big damage from that as well, but it could have been worse for both him and Ross Harlow, on the other hand. Managed to go through his brother and not get a significant damage on his race car, at least not as bad as it could be. So here's the on Harlow, and you're going to see clips the apron a little bit immediately to the right. Just, he probably thought it was a lot looser than it was and overcorrected significantly. You heard the engine actually go there, so that goes done for this race, absolutely, for sure.
That is a
and that's going to be, yeah, that's gonna be a big one for his playoff hopes here in the opener race. Because think about the remaining race. I believe it's Indianapolis next week, followed by Watkins Glen. So that road course, even if you aren't necessarily one of the quick ones, you just need to be good enough to get those stage points. But it's gonna usually, road courses are status quo, meaning the stages and the race results are usually uniform and the same. So it comes down to who he finds himself racing in that situation. If you racing somebody who's going to be top 2 or 3 for sure, it's just a matter of can he not lose as many points. It's one of those tough deals with having a road course as the cut line race, but either way, the best thing he can do is go on to Indianapolis and try to have a better race there.
Yeah, and for Harlow, he's, obviously frustrated there with that incident. Just a little bit of snap oversteer, and that car immediately overcorrected to the outside wall. And very much the dangers there of catching that paint. You get the apron just a little bit too much on the left side tire of the race car, and all of a sudden that car will start stepping out little by little and just trying to be aggressive on the throttle in the fight for position. And a lot of times you think of playoff drivers finding trouble, but them having a bit of a safety net, those extra playoff points. Stephen Harlow is not fortunate enough to have those playoff points in his hand. So he comes into this race +0 from the cut line. And so he will be out of this one early. Let's get a moment to talk with Stephen Harlow. Stephen, I know visibly frustrated there. Of course, a really tough scenario. Just talk us through what happened there off of turn 4 and what you felt behind the wheel.
I was trying to poke a headlight out below. Oh gosh, I don't even. Warren was in front of me, I think. I was trying to poke a headlight out below him, and I got just a little bit low and touched the apron, and It just got me around enough that the wheel went loose and it went straight to the wall. There was nothing else I could do to it.
Just very quick as it happens, a real tough break. Hopefully things can pick back up at Indianapolis, but Steven, best of luck, and hopefully you're able to get back in this race and muster what you can.
Thank you. It's definitely killed. Race is over.
That's Stephen Harlow, driver of his number 11 Chevrolet. Obviously disappointed there from that little mistake off of turn 4. And just as quickly as you register the car getting loose is just as quickly as that car is getting sent right up into the outside wall. And just the attempt to save it. So, unfortunately, Stephen Harlow will be out of this race. Kip Easley so far is a lap down, and counting will notify on whether he is out of the race as well. Green flag restart for lap number 62, and this time a decent getaway by the field. No proper wheel spin for those second on back. Good restart by the leader, Moreno. Progar trying to fend off Justin Erb and the two TOW Racing teammates nearly side by side, but there comes Lawson Peel for third off turn 2.
And this is going to be the crucial stretch in the race where the sun starts to go down. Here at Charlotte, going down the back straightaway, the glare will be in front of them. So at least for the next 20 or so minutes, that glare could pose an issue going into that corner on potential passes or pass attempts. It can throw off drivers. It realistically can do that if the drivers have the proper settings in there, if the glare is showing very strongly. So you got to be careful with the next bit of a couple laps when you're making moves on this end of the racetrack.
And here comes Justin Erb, fantastic turn 2, and he'll dial up his nose to the inside of the Red Bull Chevrolet up top. Fight for the top spot again, and it should open the door right up for that blue, yellow, and white Napa Auto Care Chevrolet of Lawson Peel sitting behind in third. Erb again cannot dial up the inside and get the nose ahead. Door to door to the stripe back to turn 1.
And as long as they stay side by side, it could invite everybody else to try and join the party in this battle for the lead as Peel creeps up, trying to see if he can take advantage as they're almost leaning on each other off of 2.
And that's what you got to do here at Charlotte. Side draft until you can get right around them. And so far, Erb has not been able to do so. He's going to try to get right to the paint on the inside of the racetrack. Moreno has been so strong defending on the high side. Peel will take spot. He may try to take away second. He'll stay behind Erb as they chase back to turn 1. And he will not unleash the move just yet. The Columbus, Mississippi native hanging back, but he's got definite shot at it as Moreno holds on to the top spot.
That was a good block by the 20. It was just slightly enough to prevent Peel from going to the outside. As see how loose Erb gets going into 3, trying to see if he can mount a crossover attempt, but he gets caught in the dirty air, and you see him unable to really close that gap in turn 4. And this is the best seat in the house because Peel's watching what the 20's doing to try and catch up to Moreno, and he kind of just tries to run wherever the 20's not. And you see that entry goes in so high, gets down to the bottom, but he drifts up much higher, carries a good amount of momentum, so he could try to challenge Moreno here.
And not exactly is it Lawson Peel the only driver in the mix. Chris Progar, that Fastenal Chevrolet, and the second place car in stage 1 is here to play as well. Very good start off of a solid pit stop. It did cost him a couple positions there through the top 5, but was just able to skimp around, and Chris Progar hanging back. So as long as these two continue to go side by side, the other end of the TOW Racing team can start to find a bit more of that fire that he ignited there late in the opening stage of the race. Great exit off of turn 2 by Erb, but stays deciding, and he'll end up right behind Moreno as they come back through 3 and 4. I take it here, Francisco, as this race continues to develop here, and you watch this battle for the lead between Erb and Moreno that remains by at least a distance of maybe half or to a full car length. It's now different lanes being played. Moreno has succeeded so much by staying in the middle groove and just giving that inside guy no chance of proper throttle exit off of the corner. And now you see Erb trying to adjust as necessary, getting into the clean air, and now it's saying, hey, if I can get to your inside and challenge the lead, I'm going to go up top.
Well, we saw Moreno do just this. He's willing to give everybody that. He knows that when it comes to defending, he's able to use that middle and high side to perfection and hold off everybody. Doesn't matter if they get to his inside. He's willing to do that, but he doesn't want them to get to his outside. And as the sun continues to go down, I expect that 87 to get definitely faster when these lights cools down even more. The track temperature when we started was around 90 degrees, I believe, and right now it is sitting at 90 degrees. So it's still expected to a bit more before the end of the race, and that's all going to favor the 87 and as he nearly strikes the outside wall, but nothing too big there. He hangs on to the lead. And how about his teammate, Steven Maggio, who's crept up into 5th in this run?
And that's the Nashville Super Speedway winner, of Steven Maggio, who had his teammate Moreno finish back in P2 of that race, was able to get underneath his teammate Jaden Porter and had a bit of banter there on the post-race interview, but that was the last kind of intermediate racetrack that these drivers have experience in, because obviously Maggio and Moreno, this entire KBueno Racing team, had joined this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season quite late. So when they made their first starts and they started to make an imprint on things, obviously no real impact for the playoffs because they'd be too far in points and they wouldn't have the minimum starts necessary, but that leaves them with the races that they've run, not any of them being a typical mile-and-a-half racetrack like this. But obviously their experience in a lot of other leagues has helped out. Maggio and Moreno have been fast in their short but successful Droppin the Hammah Series career. So as we watch the battle for the lead on the left side of your screen between Herb and Moreno, Steven Maggio back in 5th, just trying to figure out what he's going to do. Should he be able to catch up to the main group of 4? All of them within 2 car lengths and 0.2 of a second. Outside look for Moreno. He'll use the momentum off the banking to get the run and take back the race lead. And now the fight for second up for auction. Peel taking a spot through the outside of turn 3.
And he clears for second immediately on Justin Herb. So Peel with a great effort through turn 2 to get to the outside of Herb, and now he's going to sit behind and try to see what he can do to battle Moreno after having watched Justin Herb do it. And I got to tell you this, Kenneth, because it is so real and so true at the same time. Lawson Peel did not have much of an opportunity to try to win that championship on Wednesday night. So even though he's been such a dominant driver this season, he's going to hold that to a high standard, and he's going to try to push all out throughout these playoffs to try and make up for that.
And his resume of dominance stands out, especially amongst this group. A lot of them are still the leftovers of the defunct now Sunoco Cup Series, to which Peel had won the final 3 championships of that series, all consecutively, back to back to back. So if there's any hunger for Lawson Peel, it's that history in mind, along with Wednesday's missed out shot at a championship. And now for the first time, he's got a shot at the race lead here from Charlotte. Dowd to the inside. Peel's going to make his move main, and Moreno will play more defense. It's all working out for the Red Bull Chevrolet to lap 75.
He's doing exactly what he has to at the right time. He runs the bottom normally, no matter what, and then as soon as you see him drift up like that, that's going to get them into dirty air, gives them a little bit more momentum off the corner, and it's going to force Lawson Peel into a position where he doesn't have that much momentum to work with. He gets to the bottom here in turn 3, tries to dive it down there, but if he can clear Moreno and slide up, that's going to be the move. Otherwise, Moreno gets back on the quarter panel like that. He's going to have a chance going back to turn 1.
And we haven't seen a change of the race lead since Moreno took it back in the midway portion of stage 1 through fresh tires. And even then, that wasn't really a fight in itself. It was just a let them by because of the big time difference. It was 24 laps in favor of Moreno, who, think of it now, has 1 less tire set to play with than a lot of the other guys should we stay green for the rest of this stage, or if we get a yellow flag and maybe some drivers come down pit road. I think that would keep them at 1 set shorter, but should the yellow flag come out only for the stage finish at lap 100, everyone should be on the same set of Goodyear Eagles until the end. New race leader, Lawson Peel taking away through the inside. Chris Pogar and Justin Herb will try to decide amongst themselves. Those are the 2 TOW Racing teammates, but it is the playoff standings leader and 5-time winner back at the front from Charlotte.
And battling for 10th place right now on the racetrack is Eric Schaefer and Ross Harlow, who's repaired a little bit of the damage he got from that previous wreck, and right now they're sharing the same part of the racetrack, a couple playoff drivers behind them as well. But it's the 3 and the 16 doing battle, and it's been a tough going for Steven Stemping, who's down in 13th, has not really recovered well after his early incidents of just minor contacts with the outside wall, and he still has some pretty good front end damage on his race car. Just looking at it here from the skybox camera, you can tell that that front end is pretty dented in, and he's probably struggling for a little bit of pace because of it.
Yeah, we saw Ross Harlow spend a bit of time down pit road to fix the right front damage that he picked up from the initial contact with Moreno off turn 2. And then Steven Stemping, the other end of the Droppin the Hammah team group, is just kind of falling back. And just how much these races change, Francisco, with the level of competition. And all it takes is 1 mistimed yellow, 1 poor situation, 1 bit of damage, 1 hiccup, and you can be sent to the back of the field in a moment's notice with not as much of a chance to really rally back. Still a long way to go in this race, of course. We still have a bulk of this stage left, and then that long 100-lap final stage until the checkered flag at lap 200. But for Steven Stepien, he's got to find a way to dig in and start working now. The driver who stood up to the challenge won his first and only race of the season at Worldwide Technology Raceway after several events in which we thought Stepien could go out and win, one of them being the first mile-and-a-half race of the season back at Las Vegas, where he came second fiddle to the race leader right now in Lawson Peel. But Stepien trying to reach what he can. He did not pick up stage points in the first stage of this race, barely missed out from 11th, and now back in 13th, really having to find his spirit and get back in the game.
And this is the fastest car on the racetrack right now. It is Steven Maggio. He saved his tires right throughout this run and has driven up into third. He's going to cruise up to the back of his teammate Ethan Fonseca Moreno. He looks to the inside, and Moreno cuts him off right there. Does not want to give the 97 an opportunity into turn 3, but eventually this 97 is definitely going to get past Moreno. He is nearly 2/10 quicker than both your runners.
And a lot of that has come down to the tire wear from just fighting so much at the front. A lot of Moreno's tire wear has come from the defense. Lawson Peel, a lot of that has come from the attack. And Maggio has the best seat of the group. Now to the inside of his teammate, and not sure if Moreno will try and play nice here between the two Chevrolets. Maggio will make his move to the inside. Moreno is going way up to the outside wall, but the Branch Chevrolet is able to peek out in front for just a moment. Top 3 within 2/10 of a second, down to 18 laps to go in the second stage.
And before Maggio made the move on Moreno, it looked like Moreno was already creeping back towards Lawson Peel, so Peel might have used up whatever he had of his tires to get initially around Fonseca, because now both of these drivers, despite racing each other, they're gaining on Peel, and now they have a chance to race the 9 car for the top spot. And you saw Peel there give the draft to appropriate car to keep them side by side. That's what he's going to have to do here to keep them behind him. But you see Peel gets loose at the corner. As long as Moreno keeps this run up, he could challenge for the top spot. What a great battle we have shaping up here.
Our Charlie Bauer Photography onboard camera giving you the best view of this fight for the runner-up position. Lawson Peel playing defense, playing with both lanes, trying to give draft to either of them. And there's contact between the two teammates. Moreno nearly got sent out of line, and that keeps them even. In the run back to turn 3, Maggio will lunge it deep. Moreno won't play any sort of resistance, and so Steven Maggio will take over second, and he'll charge for more to the outside of the race leader. He'll get the nose up high. Maggio gets the spot. He'll try to look for the lead in turn 1.
Pretty sure they both wanted to be the one to get by Lawson Peel, but Maggio's just so much faster. And you see Peel get tight right there, drifts up and makes with the 97, but Maggio with the pace advantage just takes over the race lead, and now Moreno's to the inside of Peel.
And for the first time, it is rookie Steven Maggio at the front here from Charlotte Motor Speedway, and Peel will have to play the game of staying out of dirty air. Puts the crossover to the inside of Moreno off of turn 4. And boy, we've seen these two race aggressively. A lot of fun between these guys, either through 4 wide, through Droppin the Hammah. You name the series, they will be at it to fight no matter what. Another crossover. Moreno back down low. All the while, that bright pink Toyota Camry, Cedric Hunter, well, he's looming in the background, and now he's just about 2/10 faster than this group in the front.
And on the other side of that, Chris Progar and Justin Erb have slowly started falling through this top 10. They now sit 6th and 7th, so they continue to lose time throughout the rest of the field. There you see the 7 car just behind Warren Kyle Keith, who got by him, and Brandon Banks is slowly catching up to the 20 car for the battle for P7. Remember, these are crucial stage points that are going to get warded out here in about 14 laps or so. And Zachary Hall, on the other hand, is also in a battle here with Eric Schaefer. He's got Ross Harlow behind him. This is the battle for the final stage point positions, currently held by Zachary Hall in 10th.
And as we saw through stage 1, 2 of those 3 drivers got points in the opening stage of the race, that being Schaefer and Hall. Schaefer coming home 4th, Hall coming in P6. Ross Harlow was one of those guys alongside Steven Stepien to just about miss out on crucial points. We know that, both of them have playoff bonus points that they can kind of play with. Schaefer, the winner from Phoenix earlier on this season, he has a bit that he can kind of bounce off of should there be a problem or should he miss out here on stage 2. But the last thing he would want is to be under more pressure, but there they are. For 9th place, Zachary Hall will try and fend the inside. Eric Schaefer trying to hold the North Carolinian off, and he'll end up in a bit of a connection issue, but he'll stay to the outside as 3rd place gets decided here. And right now, Cedric Hunter making it look easy to the inside of Lawson Peel.
And that was actually the signal that the lights have turned on, so we're past the sunset point here. The racetrack lights have turned on, so we're getting into that zone of the race where the track will cool down even more and the intensity will pick up just by seeing as Moreno taps the outside wall. You see the smoke puff up there from the 87's hit to the outside wall. He's able to keep it tough though, but Cedric Hunter has been also pretty good on this long run. Has not been on that particular lap. He was a tenth and a half quicker than Maggio, but he is certainly 3/10 quicker than Moreno, so he could get up at least to P2 here in these closing laps.
And through that last lap that they crossed the start-finish line, only Hunter and your leader, Steven Maggio, were the drivers to put in laps in that 30-second bracket. All the other drivers in 31-1s, 31-2s nearly as they cross the start-finish line here. It's just about the same, except Hunter is still the only one below the 31-second bracket, 30.948 for the Canadian in Hunter, who has found some great runs in this inaugural Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season, but still has yet to find a win. Remember, the opening 2 stages of Las Vegas, our initial mile-and-a-half event of the season, he swept both stages and couldn't get the victory after some late race struggles and being involved in a crash off of turn 2 through the final segment. Ever since, he has not been able to win a stage. 9 laps to go here in stage 2 for Charlotte. Could be Hunter's return to glory as he takes over second from Moreno.
Yeah, Moreno probably used up a lot of his tire in the defense of everybody that was behind him, and you see him pull. They're both still pulling away from Peel, but Maggio and Hunter have both just saved their tires excellent through that opening handful of laps, and it is showing here on this long run. There you see on the back end of the top 10, Brandon Banks now holds the 10th place spot, and that's Ross Harlow in 11th as Justin Erb tags the outside wall, so we could be 3 wide here for the final stage position as Banks backs out of it.
Might just be the most fun we'll see at the end of a stage yet for the 10th place position. Banks trying to play aggressive here at the end of this stage to the final 7, and he'll nearly make contact. He does. Erb will save it off turn 2. What a save!
Great save by Justin Erb, and he'll keep the 10th place position. Banks backed out of that one, and now he'll be about 4/10 behind the 20. And he's going to have to try and catch back up to the 20. You see a little bit of a battle further up ahead. Eric Schaefer and I believe Zachary Hall, they're all battling together here. That's for 6 as the caution flag waves. It's even Stempian in trouble. No, it is James Kunkel and the 8 of Kip Easley, playoff driver Kip Easley involved.
And more problems for Easley. The Missouri native just can't catch a break as he coupled with James Kunkel off of turn 4 to the quad oval. And maybe this will be the end of the second stage. We'll wait for confirmation from the admins. We should have at least a couple of laps to dash it out. But the 3 Cheese Chevrolet of Easley still battered and bruised. Nearly lost his hood from the initial incident with Stephen Harlow off of turn 4. And now we'll have to pick back up once again. He is 17 laps down through all of the damage repair that he got down pit road. So here's a look at how it all started. This is in the range of that American flag race car, that Amp Energy Toyota Camry of James Kunkel, and then that bright blue 19 car, that's Brad Fulham on the inside. And as Easley makes the move on Kunkel, that's where the trouble persists, with Kunkel just getting tight there up to the top end of the racetrack, catching Kip Easley, and the 2 cars just stay near the outside wall. So with that, it brings us another yellow flag. And through stage 2, we'll have at least 5 laps to go and at least enough time to end this stage out under green flag conditions. Here comes Steven Maggio, Moreno, and some others, but most notably, Francisco, Cedric Hunter, Lawson Peel, Warren, Kyle Keith. They're staying out this time.
Well, they're obviously staying out for the stage points. They want those stage points to help themselves in the playoff situation. And then also Maggio and Moreno, they have nothing to lose. They're not racing for these stage points. They're racing for the win. They're going to come down pit road now, take their tires, and take the track position for the stage 2 restart. Ross Harlow is going to make his way onto pit road as well, so he's another one of those that decides to join the pit lane. Steven Stempian, Justin Erb, 42 of Kunkel also in. So those are the lead lap drivers that are on pit road right now, and they could cycle out to the front of the field after this short dash. We should have about 3 laps to go when we go green for this stage finish, so it's going to be a quick sprint for the line, and it's going to be a mad strength stage.
Well, it's going to be fresh tire cars, but they're going to be all the way at the back. And Maggio will pick things up from 12th place. So he should be able to pick up some spots, maybe steal some points away from playoff drivers. Right now, basically all of them are sitting in the top 10, apart from Brad Fulham and Casey Neiden. So 80% of this top 10 are currently running for the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series title. That's how congested it is. And with this shortened field at only 21 cars, now reduced to maybe 19, 18 cars if you count out Kip Easley, who's 17 laps down. I mean, almost all of these guys are running for the championship, apart from maybe a few, maybe a handful or so cars that are just out here for fun running for a race victory. But we will have enough time to decide this stage under green with Cedric Hunter in the lead. Last time we saw Cedric Hunter win a stage, it was back at Las Vegas on February 2nd with a Stage 2 victory. Lawson Peel coming off of the 5th win of the season at Daytona, looking for another stage victory of the season. And Warren Kyle Keith, who's been hungry all year long, maybe even hungrier now, fresh off of Daytona. He'll be on the inside of the second row with one of the best drivers all night long through the stages. Chris Progar will line up his Fastenal Chevrolet on the top side of row 2. Also, race high performance right now for the 17 of Craig Parks. Highest we've seen him on the grid. He is 8th place outside row 4 when we get the next restart. Francisco, how crazy is this going to be, and how aggressive do you think those guys in the second row will be for this restart? Again, this is for the 5 playoff bonus points. Some of these guys really need it.
They'll be aggressive, but it won't be on the initial restart. It'll be tough time when that 45 gets going. We see the leader get out to great restarts so far tonight, but once they get up to speed, the final 2.5 laps are certainly going to be something to watch if a caution doesn't come out.
So it's Cedric Hunter, the race leader, Lawson Peel on the outside. Keith and Progar will settle it through row number 2, and then Eric Schaefer, Zachary Hall, they'll settle in 5th and 6th. That's the inside and outside of row number 3. As the pace car comes down, only a few left before the end of the second stage, and it may just end in an all-out brawl. The bright pink Toyota Camry of Cedric Hunter will lead the field to the restart zone and back to the green flag. Good start by the 45 Toyota. Keith will follow in the tracks. Lawson Peel will play a bit of defense back to turn 1.
There's that good enough launch for the 45 as he'll get cleared by about a car or 2. Warren Cal Keith moves up into 2nd. He has to exit off of turn 2 a bit oddly. He loses momentum. Peel is forced to give him the push, and there comes the 23 of Zachary Hall to the inside. Hunter misses the bottom in 3 and 4, so Warren Cal Keith is going to have an opportunity to try and make a run at him as Peel tries to go side by side for 3rd. Instead, he has to battle the 3 of his teammates.
Well, Peel nearly sent Keith up into the racetrack there in turn 3. Just about gave him a tap as they were going in just about 3 wide. Keith will now have a chance to pounce on Hunter, but he's washed up off turn 2. Here comes Zachary Hall, Category 5 Esports, trying to sweep 1 and 2 at the end here in the second stage from Charlotte. There comes Schaefer to the inside, and Peel drops all the way to 5th. Here he comes to the white flag in the second stage.
And the battle in our hands for the final stage points position. Stempian has just taken over the 10th place position from Craig Parks and Brandon Banks in a 3 wide move as Lawson Peel had tagged the outside wall off a turn previous lap. There's the 7 of Chris Progar just in front as he nearly got into the wall himself. So right now Stempian holds that final points paying position. The top 10 have broken away from everybody. Here's the 23 of Zachary Hall and Cedric Hunter. Teammates come into the line. There's Moreno on the outside with a huge charge to take 3rd here off of the final corner. And he might get 2nd as Schaefer sideways.
He'll go to 2nd, but Hunter holds on to capture his first stage win since February of 2025. Cedric Hunter gets career win number 3 in the stage. And Moreno nearly had a fighting chance there. He was riding the wall there off of turn 4 and made up at least 3 or so positions. Moreno charging on the fresh tires with nothing to lose, ends up snagging away 2nd from the playoff driver in Zachary Hall. But how about the surge up by Cedric Hunter? Strongest car under the long green flag stretch right before the yellow, and sustains the pressure for his 3rd stage victory of the year. I'd say depending on the season that we've seen from Cedric Hunter, Francisco, this is a well-needed boost of momentum after what's been some rocky weeks through the mid-portion of the season, finding his way back, and Hunter will pick up the pace car with the race lead.
And let's try and get a look at Moreno's final lap here if we can, because that was something spectacular. As you see him, he starts the final lap somewhere around 6th or 7th. He jumps up to the outside. Schaefer drifts up and nearly gets into the outside wall. Moreno tried to take evasive action before anything happened, and Schaefer tries to side draft him for that position, but the tires, they just proved to be too much here as there's Moreno going up as high as he can without actually getting into the wall. Zooms past the 78, and then right here with a big enough run, goes to the inside of the 23, and he takes second away at the line. That looked video game-esque.
Give him another stretch of asphalt, and he may just take away the stage victory then if there was just a little bit more time. Moreno powering through to the outside. I saw him off of turn 2, basically running the wall like Ross Chastain, just trying to hold on. And even then, he was still faster than the rest of the guys on the inside just because of that Goodyear Eagle tire difference. There is Hunter on pit road, fresh off of the stage victory. Moreno will stay out, so will Steven Maggio. And then the list goes up to 4 cars. Ross Harlow and Steven Stepien will elect to remain off of pit road because of their recent decision for strategy right before the end of stage 2. But I'd say it's a relatively good call, Francisco, for Steven Stepien and Ross Harlow. I mean, they had strong races at the beginning, and they've kind of tapered off here in the second stage. Why not go for fresh tires? And the difference will maybe be 1-2 laps if you decided to save as much as you could there in the stage. So I'd say for Harlow and Stepien, given the way their race kind of derailed a bit, they're finding their way back on the tracks here just at the opening of stage 3.
And we nearly had 4 wide exiting the pit lane that we just did not see. It was between the 23, the 3, and the 9. They nearly pit lane 4 wide.
So there's a look at it right behind the leading car off pit road in Hunter. And just barely, Zachary Hall is going to get that. 3 wide right behind. Fate 4. Count them all. All of them running for second off of the pit lane. That is wild stuff.
Yeah, race off pit roads here are always exciting.
It seems like this series ends up putting photo finishes on pit road more than they do on the racetrack. But like we saw at Daytona 2 weeks ago, I think photo finishes are starting to open up everywhere here. The competition is so tight.
I was going to suggest, how can you say that after Daytona? We just had probably the closest finish we've ever seen. Definitely can't ask for more than that as we take the 1 to green. But if this stage does go green, Kenneth, we're going to have green flag pit stops just a one time. And it just depends on when you consider coming down pit road. If that's the front end of the back end of the run, maximum fuel can probably get you somewhere around 65 laps as we have 96 laps to go once we take the green flag. So it could be a split. It's just going to be a matter of when do you decide to bring it down pit road, as that's our summary of our stages as we're getting ready to start the final stage here from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. The track is almost fully under the dark now for the final 96, and it's going to be the teammates leading us to the green, much like they did at the start of the race. Track time down to 88 from the last time, but at 94 as it was at the start of the race. Light wind out of the southeast. You know what that means. We're going to get some faster race cars, some probably a little bit tighter handling, but these guys are going to be even more aggressive than they were.
That's right. With our SK Sim Racing race analysis, fuel can get you nearly to the end, but you got to go on one stop, and it will last if we get a green flag run starting right here. BBR has control of the front row, and it is a quick getaway for the Red Bull Chevrolet of Moreno. It'll put Ross Harlow right on the inside of Steven Maggio for second. Remember, fresh tire cars are running 5th on back as they chase the turn 1.
And Stepien on that strategy has gotten himself up into the top 5, the track position that he has not had all night long. We'll see what he's able to do with it now from as Lawson Peel, I believe he is down into 9th, obviously losing a couple spots on pit road. He's side by side with Warren Kyle Keith right now behind Eric Schaefer. That's for 8th.
And there's Ross Harlow running in 2nd, formerly the race leader. He's done well so far at the front, but in stage 2 quickly fell back, missed out on crucial stage points at lap 50 and then at lap 100, just in that huge fight of race cars for the final spot inside the top 10. Harlow trying to get his race back on the right track. Again, like we've said, many top 10 finishes throughout the course of his career since the top 3 finish in our last mile-and-a-half race of the season at Chicagoland. And there's the difference, half a second between Harlow's trailing 16 and the leader in the 87 of Ethan Fonseca Moreno. And it's a very interesting approach here off of the corners from that 87 car. We mentioned how he's that guy without a playoff spot, so theoretically he's got nothing to lose, and he's been driving like that for sure, as aggressive as possible and taking no chances or taking all the risks rather, taking all of the chances. But it's a very interesting line there. He doesn't necessarily keep himself on the very bottom end of the racetrack. He gets down low, cuts up high, and then that's where he's able to rotate the car. A lot of that to play the defense. And Francisco, in that 4-wide race at Charlotte that we saw a couple of weeks ago, he employed the same strategy, going down low, moving up high in the middle of the corner, and just keeping the rest of the competition at bay. And with how close of a race we've seen at Charlotte, I think that may be the necessary ploy of implement there for the race leader in Moreno. So far, it's panned out, and so far, he's been one of the most dominant cars of the day.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Once you find something that works, why change away from it as long as it continues to work? So Moreno's going to keep doing that as long as it's able to pay dividends. And I believe 2 or 3 laps ago, jumped up to the outside and has gained multiple positions as he was able to get around several guys. As it was a single file train along the bottom, he just decided to say, yeah, I'm going to move up a lane and go by 3-4 of you guys. And that's exactly what the 9 car has done. So driven his way up into 4th place. Stempien has gotten up to 3rd. Maggio down to 5th, but they're all slowly catching up to Moreno, as this is a big deal with the draft, the low track temperatures. It's going to really make it difficult for anybody to really pull away, especially for the first 30, 40 laps of the run.
Beautiful onboard look from Stempien Chevrolet, and so far the strategy call has panned out in him and Harlow's favor. And no real movement from the fresh tire cars behind. The only bit of movement was for 4th place, and that was Lawson Peel stepping up into the plate right in front of Steven Maggio. But for right now, there hasn't really been that much of a charge from Cedric Hunter and company. There's Lawson Peel about a couple car lengths behind this black and white Chevrolet, which is right in the theme of Memorial Day weekend, which just passed last week. And Stempien with a race high 3rd since the drop of the green flag, in which he ran up front, kind of fell back through the middle portion of stage 1. You were looking at the camera there on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and I think, Francisco, we just have an extra viewer. You saw that TV screen there on the left side of his camera. He's got our Droppin the Hammah Cup Series broadcast right now on the KBueno Racing Network up on his TV. So pretty cool stuff for the league owner, Stempien, just getting in and supporting the KBueno Racing Network, as his teammate Ross Harlow may just open the door in the battle for the race lead. Had a whale of a run off turn 2. Didn't use it yet, and the door's still shut for now.
Can we call that some inception?
I think, well, actually, it may just be inception, just because there was a frame or two there where we had his camera up on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and then he had our screen, to which probably had a screen of his on the, I don't even know. I don't even want to think into the layers of that, but...
Yeah, it's something else. As here's the 16 making a move to the inside. He's able to make the crossover attempt to the bottom, and now Moreno's going to have the outside lane. Will fights it. We saw the tire wear play a big role in that last run that saw him drop down to about 3rd or so, and you see him not fight too much, the 16 with it. He knows this is going to be a long run to this stage. He feels better probably in his tire wear capabilities. Stempien has gotten some of his damage repaired, and he is able to stay up with your top 3. He's cruising up to the back of the 87. When you mentioned Memorial Day weekend, Kenneth, that last weekend I got my first opportunity to spend Memorial Day weekend up at the Indianapolis Speedway, and that was an incredible experience that everyone should be able to experience at least one time.
What would you rate that, or where would you tier it as far as in real life race experience goes for the Indy 500?
I mean, I could probably be objective because I don't necessarily have a favorite like that, so depending on if somebody was out or if there was a performance, that my opinion's too affected by it. But I felt like it was a pretty decent race. It was obviously we had the vacations early that kind of delayed the start. Kyle Larson was out of the race, which is a big headline for his double sakes, and then ended up not finishing the Coke 600 as well. But honestly, it was really spectacular, great showing that they were able to put on, and obviously Alex Lowe continued his dominant season with a win there late. You definitely felt sorry for Ryan Hunter-Ray, who was in a great shot to win, but overall, Kenneth, definitely a great experience.
Yeah, I was going to ask more so about the atmosphere of being at the race. Would you say that's top tier as a racing fan?
Oh, absolutely. It was definitely great, especially when they had the Apache helicopter circling around just a couple feet above us. It felt like you could go up there and touch the landing gear.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I still trying to get out there to the Indy 500 or the Coca-Cola 600, be a part of one of those races on Memorial Day. Well, now that the F1 Monaco race is going to move to a June date, so it won't be on the same weekend as the 2 very famous American races in the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600 ran here at Charlotte.
You know what we really have to do is get you to any motorsports race outside of the state of Florida. That's what we have to do.
That's true. I've been to both races in the state of Florida. I've been to the Homestead races, of course, and I've been to a couple Daytona 500s. But I've never been outside of the state. I think it's just a bucket list, and hopefully it happens sooner than later. You were watching the battle for the lead. Ross Harlow continues to man the charge up front. And we talk about consistency for Harlow this year. He's led laps in 7 of the last 8 races. That includes his win back in New Hampshire Motor Speedway. But look who's making a charge up now. James Kunkel for the D Legacy Motor Club. He's on a set of fresh Goodyear Eagles, and he is the best charger of them all. 7 laps fresher, and he's on the outside. He'll lead his first lap of the night at lap 119.
Definitely not saving tires right now as the 42. He's just trying to get to the race and give himself a chance at the front, and he's going to get by this 16 here. See how he pinches down the 16 off the corner. He doesn't get a great run himself as he tags the outside wall, so he'll actually stay side by side for the top spot. Stempion's going to help his teammate out into 3 to keep them side by side, but Moreno continues to save his tires. So does Peel, Hunter, Maggio. So they're going to hope that this front trio continues to use up their stuff, and eventually they'll find their way around them.
And Kunkel off of a 16th place finish from the regular season finale at Daytona, where he led 11 total laps and nearly had a chance to win the deal had he not crashed off of turn 2, I believe it was, in the final lap of the race, right behind Warren Kyle Keith, who, like we've said already, fell short at 1/1000th of a second, maybe a couple feet, maybe less than that, to Lawson Peel at the start-finish line. But Kunkel's not here to play around right now. Still in the fight for the lead. Hard hit to the outside wall. He'll keep Harlow to the inside of the racetrack. And now as Ross Harlow, I don't know what your approach is, whether to stay back and let Kunkel just continue to race aggressively or fight as hard as you can for the clean air. For right now, it appears Harlow is starting to push it. And again, Kunkel hits the top spot of the outside wall.
Either one of these guys are saving tires. The 42 definitely much less. He's abusing the tire, trying to clear for the top spot, keeps hitting the outside wall. You see him try to clear there, and he'll stay side by side with the 16, especially with Stempion coming up to help. And I think Progar is also trying to push the car a little bit more. He's made up a couple of positions. He's using that outside lane, and now the 16 clears for the top spot. Now Progar finds himself up into 4th. He tries to move up into 3rd. Peel jumps up there as well to get up to 5th. So looks like it's a mixed bag of multiple drivers either pushing and saving, and they're kind of just merging on each other, making this look like Atlanta.
Well, if there's any certainty in what we're seeing right now, is that the battle for the lead between Kunkel and Harlow really opened the floodgates for everyone else third on back. Stempien and company had a pretty solid buffer. Back to 4th place, Lawson Peel was at the moment just kind of sitting there, giving the other guys some elbow room, and now we're 3 wide, and there's contact. Stempien had to wall it up before getting into the quarter panel of James Kunkel's Toyota Camry, and once more we're 3 wide for a moment. Peel to the inside for 3rd.
He'll gain multiple spots there, and he could clear the 42 off this corner as the 42 is now struggling for grip. Peel was able to gain 4 spots in that whole ordeal, as everybody else that he was behind of, originally saving those tires, is growing back, and you see contact there with Cedric Hunter middle.
Squabbling up through the middle is Cedric Hunter, and he'll get another tap, this time from Stempien up the racetrack, and it'll spin Chris Progar. As they get off of turn 2, they catch Steven Maggio and Warren Kyle Keith. More playoff drama ensues from Charlotte. Yellow flag with just about 76 laps to go.
And looks like everybody was just running out of room of where to go on the racetrack. Everybody was pushing it very hard for the track position. And once we started to get the mixed bag of guys who use their stuff up and guys still with some goodie in their tires, eventually contact was made. Hunter was trying to squeeze through the middle. He made a great move here in the middle of the travel. The space was there. They drift up just slightly, and you see him how sideways they get in the center of the travel. Chris Progar machine, but then right here, a little bit of contact. Stempien, a second bit of contact, and around goes the 7. Does a great job of saving it, but then the contact right 78 and the 97 gets into the back of Maggio, trying to avoid the wreck, and is what causes the caution in actuality.
See if we can get a look from Maggio's perspective there. And it all just begins from Stempien getting a bit tight as he caught the apron there in turn 1 and just moved up there up to Hunter. Hunter obviously went up the racetrack, nowhere to go for him. Maggio at the end of it getting collected and thankfully escapes damage. But for playoff competitors, this race has not been kind to the group. We talk about Kip Easley being sent almost out of this race. Stephen Harlow's out of this race. Alex Muscarella quiet playoff ending for car number 48, and the Matsuman is out of this race already 97 and counting laps down. And for a lot of the other green banner cars, they have been struggling to find a way through. Leaders on pit road, though. Moreno will try and bring them out, but Lawson Peel will beat them through outright. Him, Harlow, and then the battle for third place off pit road. Kunkel just got it by a nose.
Moreno actually might have gotten the third spot and all that because of the #1 pit stall.
So he escapes there. 14.2 for Moreno, Cedric Hunter, and Steven Stempian back in 5th and 6th. I think Hunter will give that up to Stempian as they decided that from the exit of the pit lane. But Lawson Peel will have the advantage as we go back to green flag racing later on tonight. Let's see if we can get a word with the Stage 2 winner this evening. Didn't have a chance to talk to him under the yellow flag, but we will have a chance to speak to him now. We're joined by Category 5 esports driver Cedric Hunter. And Cedric, I'd say this stage win at lap 100, it's a huge boost of momentum. You haven't won a stage in several months. Mile-and-a-half performances have been really well for you, especially early on. How big is a stage win like that at this juncture of the race?
It's huge, man. Like you said, it's a long time coming. I think that the speed has been there. We just kind of haven't had the results that we've been wanting to get. And then obviously stages haven't been good to me either. So it's a great way to start the playoffs. I think that we can keep this momentum up going forward. I think this last run is going to be really interesting. I just topped off my fuel there because I think if I could save probably about 3 to 4 laps of fuel and I can make it to the finish, and most guys might not be able to. So yeah, so a lot of strategies here coming to the closing lap, so it's gonna be fun.
Seems like a fun play, topping off on fuel. We'll see if this race ends up in a fuel strategy event. Cedric, we appreciate the time. Congratulations on the Stage 2 victory, and best of luck on the next restart.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
So Cedric Hunter, right in front of his teammates of Zachary Hall. They'll come out of pit road here and rejoin the rest of this field. And Hunter, like we said there earlier on, and he echoed the sentiment, big-time stage win. And with this topping off of field, that's going to be really interesting, Francisco, to see if this race goes green all the way and the rest of the field still has to at least come down pit road one time. Hunter is going to take the gamble early on. He won't lose that much track position. He will restart this race only on the outside, or rather inside here as he just comes off pit road, but he'll be in 12th when we get the green flag. So we'll restart here at lap 128 with Lawson Peel in control from the high side of row 1. Ross Harlow on the inside there. Moreno and Kunkel will file out the inside and outside of the second row as we get our next green flag restart. Peel has been strong all night long. We'll see what kind of getaway he gets here. Green flag back in the air from Concord, North Carolina, and it is not a pure getaway. Ross Harlow puts his nose down low. We're fighting for the lead in turn 1.
A rare time that the second place starter gets a good enough launch, and he nearly clears them.
Well, it won't be over yet. Peel gets the crossover, switch over to the inside. He'll try and dart it down the bottom alley, and he'll stay right next to the blue and white paint. Washes up in turn 4, and we'll continue the fight off turn 4. Here comes Harlow back to the inside of the stripe.
He has a great run, and he clears for the top position as now Moreno joins the fight. He's up to the back of the 9 core.
What a race we're watching here from Charlotte. In the late stages, these guys go blow for blow, and they don't hold back any punches. Peel with a great turn 2. He'll put the nose to the inside. Moreno figuring out where he's going to go, and car number 9 gets back to the bottom end of the speedway through 3. He'll have the lead. Does Harlow respond off turn 4 this time?
And you see Kunkel trying to work that outside lane. Got a little bit loose, but he's not saving any tire in the early portions of this run. Broken. Put on some qualifying laps and try to take the race lead and give him some nice TV time.
Well, we asked just how big of a factor non-playoff drivers are in this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series edition of the playoffs, and they seem to matter a ton, with Moreno being one of the best drivers all night long, and the quick surgence of James Kunkel in the midst of the group, nearly sending it up to the wall. They're in the middle of 3 and 4, just got a bit too much on the apex and got the right front tire squealing there in the middle of the corner. But there's Steven Stempian, Brandon Banks in the mix. And how about Myrtle Beach, South Carolina's Brandon Banks? A very quiet performance for the PaulsCars.com Chevrolet, and he had to face a couple of setbacks in this event as James Kunkel tries to go for the race lead But Brandon Banks found himself in an incident very early on, got his car repaired, a scare with Zachary Hall off turn 2, and then another situation where he found damage. Nearly could have taken him out of this race, but he's been able to hang tough, get repairs on his Chevrolet, and he's just hanging, dangerously looming inside the top 6 as James Kunkel becomes the brand new race leader with under 70 laps to go.
And that's the thing, is that there's just under 70 to go. We still have a pit stop to race. The fuel window is probably around 65 laps, 68 if you really save some good fuel, 69 laps. So we still have plenty of ways to go in this race. These guys last pitted about 10 laps almost already as it is, considering the caution laps. Just way too many laps to go to get to the outer edge of the fuel marker to even consider saving fuel. We're on board with some of those guys that topped off, at least I was, and did not hear them clutching and coasting. They're running 5th gear around the racetrack, but they're not necessarily in max save mode. So that tells me that they're just trying to hope for any kind of cautions. Here's Cedric Connor's on. He's not clutching it, but he is lifting and coasting.
He's +1 since the green flag restarted 12th, and he's up only to 11th. His teammate picks one up as well. He's up to 12th place. So it seems interesting here, Francisco, to understand what that strategy was. And Hunter literally told us that he's a couple of laps short. And as long as he saves, he can make it to the end while everyone else has to pit. But if he's not saving right now, is that just a switch of the plan, or is that a situation where he may be running okay now, but he'll start saving a little bit later when it matters and when everyone else is still scheduled to come down pit road? That's, again, should we stay under the green flag for the rest of this race?
I think I have my reasonable doubts on him even being able to make it to the end of the race. I mean, if he went into hard save mode, I think he could do it. The problem is I think he'd lose too much time to everybody, even if they had to pit, for him to try and get there on the one pit stop. We saw a couple drivers back at Michigan, them trying to not have to make that pit stop, and by the time they had to come down pit road, they were already passed by Jaden Porter and Lawson Peel in that battle. So that's really contending with. Yes, can you get to the end? Probably, especially if you really save, but are you really going to gain what you think you're going to by trying this strategy is what they have to cross through their minds.
Well, there's a look at our SK Sim Racing race analysis to give you a good idea of what the scope is for this final stage. 100 laps is one of our longest final stages of the year. And with these mile-and-a-half tracks, usually you do see 100 laps long for the Stage 3 area of the event. And we had that quick yellow that brought Cedric Hunter and Zachary Hall down pit road. They topped off for a couple of seconds. The rest of the field decided to stay out on their current set of tires and whatever they have in the tank of fuel, which is, so far, they're 11 laps deep into the run right now. But again, they should be able to make it to fuel maybe near the final 20-ish laps, but obviously, with tire wear and what we've seen over the course of this race, one pit stop is mandatory to make it to the end. Obviously, with the yellow flag, that will cut a wrench into the rest of the strategy for Hall and for Hunter, the two Category 5 esports teammates. And for everyone else, it should set them on a level playing field. But for right now, as the plan is to stay green, the two Toyotas are the ones we're watching right now. And Francisco, you have a bit of information on Ross Harlow, who's running third?
Yeah, he's clutching and coasting right now. I was on board with him, and he is clutching going into these corners. Lawson Peel's among the lift and coasting group of drivers. Here's the onboard with Ross Harlow, and watch as he goes into turn 1. You see the RPM die down to 2,000. And that goes to show that he is trying his best to save the fuel. And Lawson Peel in front of him is only lifting and coasting. So if we're able to get a better look at the dash here, we'll see how the RPMs go all the way down. And there you see it right there, all the way down to 2,000. That's going to save you some fuel, especially if you keep doing that lap after when you tally it over 50 laps.
That is engine idle, by the way, 2,000 RPM, some of it at 1999, but that's the range of an idle engine as they send it into the clutch. And I think Steven Steppi and Moreno may be on a different strategy here. They've elected to stay out here with a chance at running for the race lead, as James Kunkel has actually pulled away, given the fact that a lot of these guys are starting to save a bit of fuel. It's nearly 2 seconds from James Kunkel to that runner-up placement of Lawson Peel. And how about the man running in P6, Canada's Brad Fulham? It's been a struggle of a year for Car 19, but Fulham puts himself in the spotlight. Tons of attrition between playoff drivers and non-playoff runners, and with currently Only 16 cars running on the lead lap. Brad Fulham has found a way to survive and race high P6 for the 19. Good news.
And this ties into the strategy call of, are you trying to save fuel? Just betting on the fact that you're probably going to have to pit under green, or banking on a caution to come out and want the track position. I think everybody's going to have to make a pit stop at some point in this final run. So I think at this point they're just saying, to hell with it. We're just going to run our race normally, get past some of these cars that are trying to save fuel, and we'll have a good chance of trying to make up some positions. There's Steven Maggio, who restarted a little bit further back, probably saving some fuel and tire, and he's starting to claw his way up and try to fight into once again after being involved in that last incident.
Oh, and there's nearly contact there. Brad Fulham nearly getting a full rear bumper there of Ross Harlow as he's in that fight with Steven Maggio, currently still underway for position number 6 back to turn 1. But you talk about Brad Fulham's season so far, only 2 top 10 finishes, most recently coming at the World Center of Racing, the regular season finale, where he clocked in 9th. And by the way, his best finish of 9th has happened twice. Both of them have happened at Daytona. So beginning of the season, finished 9th, end of the regular season in Daytona, ends up in the very same place and could very well get his best race finish of the season if he elects to stay here in 7th. Now, we don't know the condition of Fulham's Toyota, whether he is also saving alongside Ross Harlow and a couple of the other guys at the front of this field, but he's in range, and that is all that matters for right now. Good run off turn 2. Stempien has a look underneath. Bottom shelf, a bit of contact there to Lawson Peel, but Stempien should take away 2nd. Peel will fight back on the outside, and he'll give up the spot. Stempien moves up to the runner-up spot, and they're nearly 2 seconds behind current race leader James Kunkel.
And Kunkel, like I said, his strategy is not centered around trying to save fuel or tire for that matter, so he's just trying to push as much as he can, get the gap, run whatever pace he's comfortable with, and then whenever he feels he has to make that green flag pit stop, or if a caution comes out, that's really what's going to give him the track position. There's the battle for P2 right now. It's led by Steven Stempien. There's Lawson Pugh, Ethan Fonseca-Moreno, and Steven Maggio, who's cruised up into this group, and he is looking much faster than everybody. He ran nearly 2 tenths quicker than your race leader on the last lap, and a 0.5 tenths on this particular lap. And you see Moreno jumps up to the outside now. He's looking to get past Lawson Peel, and now he gets to the outside of Steven Stempien in the process. So we'll see if Maggio decides to do the same thing and get around the 9 and the 88 here.
It'll be a 2-for-1 for Moreno. Peel's going to try and retake the spot that he lost to that black and gray number 88 Chevrolet. And Steven Maggio, the dark horse of tonight's race, he's been one of these standouts over the long green flag runs. Once you get into lap 25, lap 30, that's when Maggio really starts to shine, and it's only 21 laps in this stint. With a Brandt Chevrolet, a driver who's won 2 races in 2025, his first at Pocono, second at the Nashville Superspeedway. He'll try to get his 3rd tonight from Charlotte as we are inside the final 53. And Francisco, with 50 laps to go, you think of what could be in the cycle back to the front. We obviously know the situation for a bulk of these guys in the top 10. They're starting to save as much as possible, but is there a sweet spot for these guys knowing how short they are on fuel? And if they inevitably have to pull the trigger and come in, where would be the sweet spot inside the final 50?
Well, if it's a planned pit stop, if you know you're going to pit, it would make sense to pit somewhere around the halfway point run just to get the tire benefits. You don't lose too much time on the old tires, and you kind of get onto the goodies early enough, but you run the risk of being a lap down when the caution comes out. So that, but I think if you pit somewhere around, I would say between 30 and 40 laps to go, that's probably the best point, given how many laps we've ran on these tires. And if you're trying to wait for a caution, we know that the fuel can get you somewhere close to about 10 or 5 laps to go, even with some savings. So, and we'll see who decides to do what. I think generally speaking, we'll see a lot of fuel only, maybe some fuel only in right sides. That could play a role as you see some contact with Maggio and Peel off of turn 4 there, as Maggio's trying to get by Peel lap after lap and is unable to do that. And I think the 42 has just gone into hard saving because he's quickly lost his 2-second lead.
And his last lap time at 30.839. That's nearly half a second slower from the runner-up car in the Red Bull Chevrolet of Ethan Fonseca-Moreno. So already some hemorrhage time by James Kunkel. Possibly couple that with the tire wear that just hit him, and he probably just reached the cliff a little too early in this green flag stint. Crossing the line for the final 50. here from virtual Concord, North Carolina. It's Kunkel, Moreno, Maggio, Peel, and Stempien, the current running top 5. Peel is the highest running playoff driver as Moreno darts to the top side here, looking for the race lead in 3 and 4. Next playoff driver in line is 6th place Steven Stempien. Then it's Ross Harlow in 7th. You got to go back to Brandon Banks to find another playoff driver in 9th. And Eric Schaefer is back in 11th with Craig Park, Cedric Hunter, Zachary Hall, and Justin Erb through the top 15. Multiple non-playoff drivers have infiltrated the top 10, of course, those being Kunkel, Maggio, and Moreno. But the surprise top 5 for Brad Fulham tonight, and then a great top 10 run for both Casey Neiden and Kevin Roy, who started dead last in this race, 21st. But the 77 car has weaved his way into the top 10 and may even look for more here. Beautiful red, white, and blue Celsius Toyota Camry. I think, Francisco, you'd be a big fan of this sponsor here on the race car, but he takes over 9th from Brandon Banks off turn 4.
Yeah, he'll definitely get some points with me for that car. I haven't had a Celsius in a couple of days. I think I should get one tomorrow on my way to work and
Francisco
have
with
one.
No Celsius?
I know, right? It's a shocker, right? Yeah, it's usually it's very convenient right there, so I'm to quickly access it. But no worries, I'm all good, I'm fine. But here's the 16 of Harlow, who continues to save fuel. He continues to clutch the race car, and he is down to 9th, 6 seconds off of your race leader, Ethan Fonseca Moreno. So this goes to show really the difference, because I don't think Ethan has really saved all that much. Still downshifting into 4th gear in the corners at that, and then there's the down to 2,000 RPMs for the 16. So right now, that's really what you're looking at, because I think Ross Harlow, maybe Steven Stempien, are really the proper leaders of this save strategy, and everyone else might be considering that green flag pit stop eventually.
So Harlow has dropped back. He's nearly on the outskirts of the top 10, but is hoping that this save strategy will work out. And we'll keep an eye on both Cedric Hunter and Zachary Hall, but basically since the drop of the green flag on the restart, they haven't made much ground. They picked up 1 each off of the restart, but then have dropped off. They're now 13th and 14th, as here is Steven Maggio. Out of nowhere to the long green flag run has been the fastest car out of the top 5. Can't crack the armor of Moreno off of turn 4. And again, the invitation open for the 5-time winner this season in Lawson Peel. 3 cars, 2 tenths.
And they're nearly 7 seconds clear of everybody that they're effectively racing for this top position, because you look at everybody that's on this kind of let's not worry about saving strategy. The last one of those before you get to somebody who's racing a different strategy is Kevin Roy, who's about 6.5 seconds back in the 7th place position. I think this trio is not really worried about those guys behind them, Stempien and Harlow, who are saving the fuel. So really they're just worried about racing each other for this position, and it's going to be very important on how they get on and off pit road, because pit stops could happen any lap from now, between now and the, I believe, 10 lap to go mark. And when you pit and how you get on and off pit road could decide the winner of this race, certainly the leader of the strategy.
We talk about no save strategy here. The top 2 leaders seem to be pushing just as normal and business as usual for both the 87 and the 97. A great onboard look with the Maggio car as he's led 10 laps tonight and runs right behind his fellow teammate, good friend of his at the KBueno Racing team. And they'll get around the lapped car up the road. I believe that is Warren Kyle Keith, who was one of the last cars and is still the last car, or the second to last car rather, on the lead lap, right in front of Richard Swavely. And actually that is Richard Swavely. So the damaged car will fall a lap down. Warren Kyle Keith would be the next man in line, but it's a little while before they can catch up to car number 78. It's been a rough night for Swavely tonight. Former Championship 4 driver in one of the early seasons of the Sunoco Cup Series, and through the first trial in the round of 16, Swavely, who barely got in from Daytona 2 weeks ago, will not see this one end up in his favor, so might just be in a pretty hefty deficit as the field chases on to the Brickyard next Sunday night. But the top 3 still running as hard as ever by 0.2 of a second. That separates first and third. They have pulled away by 3.3 seconds to the next car in line, and that is former race leader James Kunkel. He's got a solid gap back to the fellow teammate, or the fellow Toyota rather, of Brad Fulham. Kevin Roy has stepped up into 6th. Casey Neiden makes his way to 7th. So a lot of great drivers in this top 10 finding a breakaway performance. And that first car who is saving in the midst of that group, Steven Stempien in 8th, Ross Harlow back in 9th. And then that Brandon Banks Chevrolet who runs just at the edge of this top 10. So you're right, Francisco. Pit stops anytime now, and Maggio is spinning off of turn 4. Yellow flag out with 40 laps to go. And speak of the strategy, it's done. We're going to be leveled on the playing field when the field comes back around.
Yeah, throw all that out the window because now we're going to have a restart and everybody's going to come in, put tires, and they'll be good to go on fuel to the end of the race. So no concerns there. And Moreno, the strategy for him worked out, and for everybody who was saving, they've now lost that track position. So now let's see if we can get a look at what exactly happened between the 97 and the 9. Looks like going into turn 4 here, looks like Maggio might have gotten tight into the outside wall, gets some space off the wall, and just comes down right in front of Lawson Peel. Nothing the 9 can do, certainly. And a nice 360 from the 97 to keep it going straight. Peel might have a little bit of right front damage on his race car, but looks like both guys generally okay.
Yeah, no damage, but obviously the contact is enough to send the brand car spinning. And here comes the field on pit road. Those that say,
and he's still third,
maybe wishing that they won't. And now it's going to be a full-on brawl to the finish line. It's going to be more about tire saving than it is fuel saving. There's Peel on his pit box. There comes James Kunkel, Brad Fulham. Brandon Banks is in. Stepien is looking on his way in. Moreno and Maggio, the first 2 pit stalls of this field, will try and take the advantage from track position. Zachary Hall and Cedric Hunter do not see their strategy to save fuel play out.
There's 2 tires for Moreno.
Quick run for Moreno, 2 tire stop, and he's in and out.
And the 97 exits, so Lawson Peel might have an issue on pit road. I don't see him exiting.
Is there a problem for Lawson Peel?
He's out now.
It's a 21.9 second stop for Peel, and he drops all
Probably
the way to
was
9th.
repairing. He was probably repairing some of that damage. Might not have been a lot, but he probably wanted to make sure he got it repaired. He actually ends up exiting down in 9th. But how about that 2-tire call by Ethan Fonseca Moreno? We've documented about how the setup is generally on the tight side here, but certainly here tonight. And he's probably trying this 2-tire strategy to get some rotation into his car. If there's any time to do it, it's now. I'm surprised his teammate Maggio didn't try it. He'll be lining up alongside of him. Bro, that spin and save let him pit from 3rd instead of losing all that track position. So Maggio thinking that the 360 was perfectly executed, like figure skating.
Yep, and it's that kind of thing where, you know, on one end of things, the yellow comes out and it freezes track position, and by that time, Maggio can gain track position lost back, but they were so far ahead of 4th place James Kunkel that even with this spin, there was no sort of a method of doubt when it comes to keeping your track position. I think they were so far ahead of the 42 car that Maggio could have done that spin, saved the race car, yellow flag comes out, and he's still going to be in 3rd. He won't even lose an inch of track position because of that spin. It does set him back a little bit, and he's going to have to mentally reset now, but he will have the outside of the front row alongside his teammate Moreno, so and maybe not any sort of bad days between these two. James Kunkel and Brad Fulham will occupy 3rd and 4th. Stepien is the current leading playoff driver in 5th, with Ross Harlow, Brandon Banks around him 6th and 7th. Eric Schaefer is back in 8th. And then with that very long pit stop at nearly 22 seconds, Lawson Peel hemorrhages to 9th. And Cedric Hunter will round out the rest of this top 10. So Moreno, who's been one of the most dominant drivers tonight, is looking for his 2nd consecutive Charlotte win here on the KBueno Racing Network. Remember our last race at Charlotte with the 4-wide racing playoffs. He ended up spoiling the party and winning that one right above his teammate, Steven Maggio. And here they are in the final 37 laps of this race. 1-2 as we'll try to run this one all the way green to the end. No concern about fuel from here on out. It's about who can tire save the best and who can outlast the storm if it comes by. Moreno has the edge. He will lead the field back to the restart zone, and once more he leaves Maggio in the background. Kunkel will find a way to the inside. Moreno leads him back to turn 1 with the lead.
And you see them battling away from 5th on back. Ross Harlow clears for the 5th place position. Brad Fulham, Lawson Peel side by side as Maggio tries to stay on the outside of Kunkel. Stepien's going to help Kunkel out to try and stay side by side for 2nd. Moreno gets a big gap already early on in this one as there you see Ross Harlow trying to immediately join his teammates up there and battle for positions. all through the field. Brad Fulham nearly tags the outside wall. Brandon Banks slides down in front of the 45 of Cedric Hunter. It is on from now for the final handful of laps.
And look at the sea of dark gray and light green, that bright green marker for playoff drivers on the left side of your screen, and that vertical ticker on the racetrack. So far, a bulk of them in the back end of this top 10, and here they are battling for position. Peel ducks it down to the inside. He'll bring his teammate Banks with him. Stepien fighting harder. We're going to be 3 wide off of turn 4, and there's trouble for Stepien into the outside wall as they caught the quad oval, found a bit of contact with James Kunkel, and it is another nightmare for the league owner in Steven Stepien.
Yeah, Kunkel got into the outside wall, and Stepien just got into his left rear in the process, and that resulted in him getting sent into the outside wall. There you see the frustration of Stepien, and here's the replay of the incident itself. Like I said, Kunkel got into the outside wall, and that resulted in the 88 getting into the left rear, and that sent him sideways in front of the field.
And they were just faint 3 wide. I'm not sure if Stepien saw that coming or if Kunkel was going to stay up in front and remain clear, but nonetheless, that contact settles Stepien out of the way. And for the second time tonight, that 88 car finds the outside wall in the quad over. Remember, early in the run, for the first stage of this race, Stepien had been up there and accidentally caught it after just being a little too high on the racetrack and not having enough steer for his race car. This time, it is created by minimal contact, and Stepien, who's had the second most playoff points going into this opening round from Charlotte, now has to face an uphill battle inside the final 30. As Lawson Peel stays behind Moreno, the gap is under a car length between the 2 leaders back to turn 3.
And just like that, we're back to how we were running just before the caution with this front 3, as there's actually James Kunkel now jumping to the outside of Maggio. We've seen Kunkel in the early portions of these runs. He does not care about saving or whatever you may have it, so he's going to use this fly like it's qualifying to get up to the front if he can. Peel look to the outside. He's going to try to cross over to get some forward momentum, and there he's got a little bit of a run. We'll see what they do, and there goes Peel to the inside.
Looks like Peel's weighing his options as he lunges down in turn 3, and it is a quick change for position. Peel, the new race leader from Charlotte Motor Speedway, as they cross the line for about 31 laps to go. You'd often think that the non-playoff drivers wouldn't play a factor here, because Peel has been the best driver over the course of the regular season, and he has a ton of bonus points to back onto if there indeed is a problem for the Columbus, Mississippi native. But there's also the thing of if you win a race, you automatically advance into the next round, and I'm sure Peel would want to escape the gauntlet that is the first 3 races of this round of 16. He'll have the lead just by a car length over James Kunkel. Moreno fighting through 3rd. He remains in his own league, while Ross Harlow and Steven Maggio try to go at it for 3rd, and Harlow's got the spot.
And you think of this first round for Lawson Peel, most of the field is already basically handing him the victory, as there's some contact further back with Eric Schaefer, Craig Parks, and just in front of Justin Erb as they're Kunkel racing to the lead. But to kind of finish my point, most of the field is already handing Peel the Watkins Glen victory. They feel like the dying car is going to walk away with that one, much like he did at Road America earlier in the season. But Peel's still trying to add on to his win total, of course, and there's Kunkel taking over the race lead, much like he did on the previous. He's not saving those tires, so we'll see how long it takes for that Ford to get caught by the driver behind.
It can get very quick here at Charlotte Motor Speedway to burn up the right front tire, and for James Kunkel, it may be a story of when, not if, for the 42 car, as Steven Maggio, remember, he gave up that position from 4th to Ross Harlow, and now he's got a ton of playoff drivers on his tail. Brandon Banks, Cedric Hunter, Zachary Hall, solid pickup for the Category 5 Esports group. You know, they were back in the top 15, 13th and 14th, when that first caution came out in the middle of the run with Maggio spinning off turn 4. And with pretty good pit stops at exactly 14.5 seconds between both of those guys, they were able to pick up top 10 running positions. And with the attrition we've seen tonight, and they've picked off one by one, and they may have a chance to gain some more track position by the time this race is over. But so far, biggest threat to Lawson Peel in the playoff running, it's got to be Ross Harlow. He stepped up 2 in the last 6 or so laps, just got around Moreno, and he's within a car length of the second place car in Peel.
We'll see how he does with Peel. He's got enough of a run here off of 2 to peek to the inside, and if he tries to take it, it's going to be a tough one. You see he actually peeks to the inside but switches to the outside. That's the move that we've seen Harlow try tonight. He'll cross over. He'll get into the dirty air here for turn but he's still in a good spot to close up to the back of Peel. He's been stronger in 1 and 2 anyways. And this could be the battle for the top playoff performer here tonight. But I don't know, I'd still look out for the KBueno Racing duo. They've been the best at saving tires over this long run, and the run is long enough where they can still come back in the final 15 laps or so.
The eyes will be on Steven Maggio, particularly the strongest car in the long run in both of our longest green flag stretches of the night. And with the cooler track temperature here at Charlotte, Maggio seems to like the situation, and even going into these playoffs, Maggio not a playoff driver, but he really enjoyed the caliber of racetracks that were featured in this stint going all the way to Homestead, Miami in the championship finale. And while Homestead isn't necessarily a track that Maggio would call his favorite of all time on the iRacing service, you think of Charlotte, Indy, Watkins Glen, and as the playoffs continue, Maggio seems to find racetrack after racetrack in which he indeed enjoys running on the service, and it may indeed be a threat to get either his 3rd, 4th, 5th win if he continues to come off and win races. But for right now, settles into 5th, and there is the battle for P2 underway. Ross Harlow taking no punches here from Lawson Peel. Peel will step up to the outside. He'll remain through the top end of the banking, and so far, remaining door to door. I guess that's going to re-invite the BBR duo here.
Well, they were trying to save their tires, and everybody else probably going a bit harder than they would like, as Kunkel certainly starts to get towards the top end of that. He's only 2/10 ahead, and now he's starting to lose a little bit of time to Lawson Peel and Ross Harlow. So it's only a matter of time Peel makes a move for the race lead. The question is, how long does it take for everybody else? Because if Peel gets to the race lead and is able to pull away of a gap, that's going to be a gap that's going to be tough to make up. Maggio jumps outside of Ethan Fonseca Moreno, and if he's able to clear him, that could be the battle for the win.
There's a prophecy coming true, right, Francisco? James Kunkel falling through the cracks. It looks like the tire wear has caught up to car number 42, and after leading a good chunk of this 3rd stage from Charlotte, may give up the race lead, but he stays up top for right now, and it's only about a car length or so before you get to Lawson Peel. And there is 3 wide, and there's contact. Ross Harlow keeps it under control. How about the save that nearly took Harlow out of the race, and we're 4 wide to turn 3.
And they're 4 wide, and he is not happy at all with Steven Maggio as he ran him down the racetrack.
There was initial contact that sent the 16 sliding. He saved it, and there was even more contact as Brandon Banks put himself in the middle of the ensemble, and it is a huge group of cars trailing to turn 1. Maggio remains in control for now, but it's the fight for 4th place that we're watching. Cedric Hunter will step up and take away the spot. Zachary Hall's right behind, and Ross Harlow must be furious after what happened there. Livid, losing 4 spots in the matter of at least a corner and a half.
And there's Moreno on the back of Lawson Peel. This is going to be the fight for the lead, as we'll try and get a replay of the incident itself, because that nearly collected in multiple cars.
And the first time we see 4 wide at Charlotte in a little while, as Moreno tries to fight for the lead. On the left-hand side of your screen, they're going to still go at it at the exit of turn 2. There's a look at the replay. The quick tap from Maggio gets Harlow out of shape, and all of a sudden, there's Brandon Banks. Harlow's up top, Maggio's in the middle, swerving, and Cedric Hunter takes control from the outskirts of the racing venue from the top end of the speedway. Just an unbelievable set of circumstances, and somehow none of them ignite our most recent caution flag. It's 19 laps to go. Moreno steals the lead. And Francisco, if you're Lawson Peel, are you at all worried about this fight? Because you look at Cedric Hunter in the rearview mirror and you kind of say, well, hey, there's a guy that's going to be a bit hungrier than me probably for the race victory, but is it worth it trying to go all out and give all of your energy for this stint against Moreno, or is Peel more content given his playoff scenario?
Asking a driver if he's content not winning a race? Come on.
Well, I mean, given his scenario, he has the most points out of the group, so given a good finish here tonight, he still would be in a very solid place come Indy and Watkins Glen, 2 racetracks where Peel is probably the favorite to win.
I think if we know Lawson Peel, he'll still try to battle for this race win. Like if he needs to win this race to advance into the next round. If he gets to the inside of Moreno here, I don't think he's thinking about Indianapolis or Watkins Glen right now. He wants to try and go win number 6.
You know what? Fair play. He's been the best driver so far in 2025. He's looking for the first drop in the Hammah Cup Series title to go into his hands. While he's fighting a guy hungry for his first win. 4 career poles and only 1 finish as of late that we've seen inside the top 3, in Moreno capturing 2nd at the intermediate that we kind of ran at Nashville Super Speedway. But here at Charlotte, Moreno likes this place very much. And in a series that he's been close but hasn't been able to capture the final puzzle piece, Moreno would want nothing more than to get his first victory and match some of his teammates at KBueno Racing, with Maggio and Porter already getting victories in 2025. So far, the gap remains at 1/10 of a second, and they haven't really let Cedric Hunter catch up quite yet. But maybe that's because there's still some tire saving going around for car number 45, and particularly the 97. But Pio ends up shoving Moreno up the racetrack. They're going to make contact as they come out of turn 4. Pio will take the lead, and now here comes Cedric Hunter, nearly 3
And the
wide.
block. The block by Lawson Peel to prevent the 45 from making the move. We saw Moreno get tagged by Lawson Peel in the quarter panel. Got the 87 all sorts of sideways. Great job by Ethan to hang on. He clears Lawson Peel once again, and now all they've done is allowed Cedric Hunter to be that much closer. But Peel's been stronger in 3 and 4. You see Moreno sideways now. Remember, he took 2 tires on the most recent pit stop. That's going to make him looser as Peel nearly puts it in the ground to get to the inside.
It's been solid awareness by Peel, just noticing how Cedric Hunter got real close in turn 1 and deciding, hey, you're not going to make it 3 wide and send me and Moreno up the racetrack. That is not going to transpire. Peel will take the lead, but the question is for how long. They're going all the way to the apron. Moreno getting sent the door shut, and he gives the bumper to Peel. To the outside, the 9 car will play defense. Moreno back to the lead, and it's a 4-car breakaway to 13 laps to go.
And there's the 3 wide move. Hunter to the inside.
Hunter looking for the lead for the first time since the 2nd stage. He's got the nose down low. Peel with the momentum up high. Is there contact between the 2 leaders? Yes, there is.
And now Moreno looks to the inside for 3 wide again.
And is there the 4th car in play? What does Maggio do? What does Zachary Hall do as the 5th car in this group? All of them within at least a 10th or 2 on the racetrack, and Moreno sends the shunt back. He wants to lead again. 12 laps to go.
You can see how loose his race car is compared to everybody else because of those 2 tires. So he is starting to struggle in a different way compared to everybody else. He goes up to the high side in hopes of clearing Cedric Hunter. Peel gets to the quarter panel of Hunter, and he's going to be forced to help Moreno down the back straightaway, so Ethan stays clear. Hunter's not going to be content now. Peel looks to the bottom. He's going to be aggressive here. He gets on the 8.
Well, the big headline here, our teammates working
Here
together.
goes Maggio.
Because the 45 car and the 23, they can stand with each other and try to work well to get the best finish possible, including a race victory. KBueno Racing has 2 cars in this fight. Between Moreno and Maggio, the only guy by himself, the 5-time winner in Lawson Peel. But we know just how good he's been at either playing defense or striking when the matter most is warranted. And for Lawson Peel, he'll stay back in line. It's a 4, now 5-car breakaway. Hall will fight back, but he'll lose a bit of time. It'll be 10 laps to go at the stripe. Moreno in the lead, but he's got a mirror full of Napa.
And a mirror full of Brent as well. Don't count out Stephen Maggio from taking it away from the top 2 right now. We've seen him being the best car on run. How loose Moreno has been the last couple laps. All it can take is one loose moment from the 87 to take him out of win. And after their contact, we know Peel and Moreno are going to give each other no space.
And you got to be really careful here, Francisco, because you and I have talked about it a ton, and we've seen it as well. The side draft leading into a right rear hook or a left rear hook down the racetrack. It's happened to Moreno. Peel has been close in those situations, and he told me a couple of weeks ago, you know, how careful he is trying to side draft race cars where he tries to get just close enough but not be too close, and when he's on the door of a race car, that's where he'll play it a bit more aggressively, but when he's on the quarter panel, that's where he'll back off, and that is regarded him as one of the best side drafters according to the 2 teammates that are fighting for him for the race win here in Moreno and Maggio. And tick of the bell, here comes the 97 car. Dial up the inside, and you'll have the drafting help into turn 1 as they catch 8 laps to go from Charlotte, and Cedric Hunter has left his teammate Zachary Hall in the dust. It's only 4 cars in contention for the win.
And Maggio's up to second. He gets the push by Peel to go to the outside. Moreno drifts up the racetrack. Maggio tries to cut back underneath. Peel's going to have a run.
Well, will he do anything with it? He's going to push Maggio off of turn 4 to the inside of
What
the
a
racetrack.
push.
And here's the fight for the lead.
Into the grass.
The turf, 3 wide. Here comes Peel to the inside.
Oh, and he nearly makes contact with Maggio. Moreno goes all the way to the outside. He's going to get a big run and stay in the lead.
How about this racing from Concord, North Carolina? 2 non-playoff drivers trying to spoil the party, and then 2 guys running for the championship, one the most dominant of the year, the other hungry for his first. 6 laps to go. It'll be at the stripe, and the 2-tire Moreno call is hanging on by a thread.
I wonder how much that's actually helping him when he runs the outside with all that rotation that he's gotten compared to everybody else. That's probably one of the big reasons why he's been able to hang on when he goes to the outside, but you're starting to see 4 tires really show their hand as Maggio goes to the bottom. You see Moreno using that outside. This is where it's really... But if Maggio gets clear and doesn't let Moreno get back to him side by side, that could...
These are 2 teammates at KBueno Racing, but when it comes to Charlotte Motor Speedway, they've been more individuals than guys working together. Moreno in the 4-wide race didn't talk to any of his KBueno Racing teammates through the restarts, didn't really communicate with them through the race. That's because he was locked in and zoned for the race victory, which is exactly what he got. And now they're 4 laps away from deciding this race amongst the 2, maybe amongst the 4.
Yellow.
And the caution flag is out. There's trouble in the back of the field, and it's former race leader James Kunkel.
And that's going to put us into dropping the hammer overtime, and pit strategies could be all the more important here, as we're going to have to get a replay and see exactly what happened. He was battling Kevin Roy and Brad Fulham down the back straightaway. And it looks like Fulham goes to the inside here off of turn 2. There you see Kunkel racing here on the bottom in front of him. And there you see the block there. And they both go back up the racetrack. Fulham probably not too happy and gets into Kunkel.
Either that or was just trying to side draft the 42 and ended up reeling him around off the second corner. So that opens this race up tenfold. And on cue, here are the leaders to pit road.
Stays
not
out.
The race leader, Maggio, staying out.
Oh boy. And everybody's going to bring it down pit road. We're going to see numerous 2-tire calls for sure here. Maggio was going to be in a tough spot there, because if he pits, most of the field could try and stay out and try to use the track position. And now several drivers are definitely going to take 2 tires here. The question is, who does? We know Moreno has that #1 pit stall. There goes everybody into their stall.
And
we're
there's
going to
Lawson
see...
Peel out in the way.
That's
Quick
it. And
stop,
Moreno.
9.6 seconds. Moreno, even quicker, 7.6 seconds. And it's Hunter, Hall, Harlow, and the Phoenix winner, Eric Schaefer. There's the rest of them going by. Only 2 cars elect to stay out. That's Maggio and then playoff driver Justin Erb, who is on 36-lap old tires alongside the 97. And so I don't know if this is going to be a proper staying out call for Erb here, who spent a good amount of time at the front early on. But regardless, they will stay out. Third on back have come down pit road. Here's a look on the right side of your screen at the replay and how things unfolded between James Kunkel and Brad Fulham. And I don't know, Francisco, I don't think there's any animosity between those 2. I think it was just a case of Fulham trying to get a bit close, side drafting the 42, and ultimately sending Kunkel for the spill.
We'll see if we get the onboard here. I mean, they both were on the very bottom of the racetrack. They both tried to drift up here, and probably him more than the other. I don't think it was intentional, but probably just got into him there, not expecting him to go all the way up to the wall, and Kunkel didn't go all the way up to the outside wall. Resulted in him getting sent around here, but that unfortunately turned the race on its head. We're gonna have 1 to green here as Steven Maggio leads us to this restart. It looks like Kip Beasley has to get cycled out here. He's multiple laps down. He was lining up further up than he probably should have been. It's going to be Steven Maggio and Justin Erb on the front row. Ethan Fonseca behind his teammate, but they're not in the same VC, so how good of a jump can he get compared to Maggio? And Lawson Peel restarting in 4th. What can he do to get around Justin Erb and not lose too much time to go up there and race for this race win? It's really a tough spot for everybody, especially on the outside, but if they can get through this restart clean and get the white flag, it could be a race.
Well, just for reference, with 2 laps to go, if you remember back to the ending of stage 2, Moreno had moved up to 2nd place. He was outside of the top 10, I believe, on 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles, and he was able to chop through the field like they were standing still. Now, that could be the case for the drivers sitting 3rd and 4th in Peel and Moreno. However, there are only 2 laps to go, so Herb and Maggio can cling on as much as they can, and they only need 2 laps in order to put themselves with a shot to win. Herb is going to hang it all out there with a chance to advance into the next round. Maggio looking for his 3rd career, dropping the Hammah Cup Series victory, and the rest trying their best to either advance or spoil the party. 2 laps to go from Charlotte Motor Speedway, and Moreno lights up the rear tires, invites Cedric Hunter to make it middle 3, and Herb is back to 2nd. Maggio leads him back to turn 1.
And Herb gets right in front of Lawson Peel to prevent him from getting passed by the 9, and the caution flag is out. Eric Schaefer.
And there's more trouble. Kevin Roy involved. Craig Parks picks up damage. And Eric Schaefer's race has turned sour. A lot of damage there to the left front of his tracker boats, Bass Pro Shop Chevrolet. And we'll do it all over again for overtime attempt number 1, I believe, of this race. Eric Schaefer getting caught up in turns 1 and 2 as they were entering the corner. A lot of fanfare there around this part of the group, Francisco, because it all begins with the Red Bull Chevrolet up the road. That's the 87 of Moreno, sliding, rear tires light up. It's going to be 3 wide, building up to turn 1. And as Schaefer goes into the corner...
I think there's a tap by the 16.
Yep, you're right. Harlow just gets right to him, and there's nowhere for Craig Parks to go. That's the Talladega winner from earlier this season, Kevin Roy, who was building up one of his best runs of the year. And I'm not sure if Harlow caught the apron. We'll get another look at it here, but either that or Harlow just pushing too hard in the center of the corner, and the car just lifted up to the banking. So another look here for Schaefer. And they're stacking up on the inside. Yeah, and Harlow just doesn't get the car rotated in enough time, catches the quarter panel of Schaefer, and it's an ugly wreck for the Virginia native.
And Kevin Roy had nowhere to go, 3-car down the racetrack. And Schaefer's going to have some big damage on his race car, probably enough to continue. He doesn't have to repair the whole car as long as he can stay on the lead lap. It gives him a chance to finish this race. And that's a big break for Moreno, who was probably going to lose multiple positions there on that restart should it have stayed that way. And now he's going to be up into 6th. And that was a huge moment. Probably happened from restarting in 1st gear. And that's something you can have happen to yourself when you restart in like that. Especially when you think about the fact that his left side tires have been on that car, I don't know, for most of this 3rd stage, about 80 laps or so since the last time he took 4 tires. So that could play a role here when you have such a discrepancy like that. But it didn't play that big of a factor for Lawson Peel, as he's able to stay in 3rd, but now he'll be behind Maggio, which is probably the better place he would like to be for this restart, behind the race leader rather than behind the 2nd place driver. Now puts Cedric Hunter behind Herb, and Zachary Hall will be behind Peel for this restart. So this will be an overtime attempt number 2, as we did reach the over the scheduled race distance for that last overtime restart. So this is number 2 out of 3. So if we're able to go and use these restarts and get to the white flag, and we'll have a green flag attempt at this finish. If we get to that car out on that 3rd and final attempt, then whoever leads the race at the time of caution will win this race. We hope not to get to that point, but who knows? The end of these races can tend to be that chaotic. I haven't seen one in a while, but it can bring it to that form.
And by the way, this is the 3rd straight mile-and-a-half race this season that has come down to at least 1 attempt of overtime. Las Vegas ended up with a restart inside 2 laps to go, and Lawson Peel carried away with the victory. Then at Chicagoland, also came down to a restart inside 2 laps to go, and Brendan Banks was able to walk away with the dub. This time, is it another DBR driver, or is it anyone else in this very talented group of race car drivers? Maggio, who has impressed many in his short but successful tenure in this series. 2 career victories, his most recent at Nashville. And then Justin Herb, who has found highlights this season but hasn't found a way to victory lane yet. Could very well end up with his first. That crucially locks him into the next round. While Peel is looking for win number 6. Cedric Hunter, win number 1. Zachary Hall, win number 1. And the list goes on. So our 2nd attempt at overtime. Again, if we get another yellow flag, we will end up in our final attempt to end this race under green But if the leader does take the white flag, we're going to race it to the stripe and to the checkered flag, no matter what. How about an opening race for the playoffs? We're going to have another overtime attempt. And it's Steven Maggio in control. The rest of the field watching on as the pace car makes his way to pit road through the restart zone. Maggio has control. Not as good of a jump from the 5-time winner in Lawson Peel. It keeps Justin Erb in control of second.
And here comes Cedric Hunter. Peel peeks to the inside, gets into Justin Erb. Save the 20. Here comes Cedric on the outside.
Erb is going to get swallowed up by the pack off of turn 2, and Cedric Hunter is going to break free with about 2/10 to go until the race leader. They'll head into 3 and 4. Erb still getting in the midst of 3 wide. They will keep this race clean, and Maggio will take the white flag. Final time from Charlotte.
And there's the block, but Hunter's going to peek to the inside. There it goes, the 45, and it should be a relatively easy pass. He clears Maggio for the lead. Here comes Peel now, trying to move up into second. Maggio sideways the corner. Peel tries to get away from the side draft. Does he have anything for Cedric Hunter in turns 3 and 4? Doesn't look like he is too far back. Cedric Hunter, who went winless in the regular season, shows up at the right time, and he's into the round of 12. He wins here from Charlotte.
How about Cedric Hunter? The first victory in his career, the first for Category 5 esports. And there's probably raw emotion from behind the wheel of the 45. Lawson Peel, Zachary Hall, Steven Maggio giving the congratulations on a clutch pass to the inside on the white flag lap. Cedric Hunter will enjoy his first career Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series victory. And it comes at the right time. Playoff race number 1. As he grants himself the golden ticket into the playoffs for the round of 12. No worries about Indianapolis and Watkins Glen. Cedric Hunter enjoys his first victory. And for the first time, will visit Droppin' the Hammah victory lane. This time from Concord, North Carolina. And in an opening season for Category 5 esports where Zachary Hall ended up in numerous positions behind the eventual race winner, Cedric Hunter with a best career finish of P2 coming at Pocono as he watched Steven Maggio capture his first victory. And in a twist of fate, Hunter passes Maggio for the race victory on the white flag lap and ends up winning the race. A very fast but very celebratory Polish victory lap for the Hello Kitty Toyota Camry. Cedric Hunter grabs his first career win here from Charlotte Motor Speedway. Well, we had some drama, Francisco, on the white flag lap involving Eric Schaefer. He was taken out nearly in that crash that brought out the second attempt of overtime. What happens here as they're chasing to the checkered flag?
Well, here's multiple cars slamming the outside wall in front of him. That's the finish of the race. And there you see them wrecking here off of turn 1. But Schaefer wastes no time and he immediately drives up and runs right into the back of Ross Harlow. He was not happy with the 16 about something, and they were going off in the voice channel towards each other. Eric Schaefer obviously not content with something Ross Harlow did.
Ross Harlow ended up in P6. Eric Schaefer walks away with 13th in the race. Of course, those two finding struggles of their own. Eric Schaefer at the time near the end of the race, and so that will do it. A bit of drama there at the end of the race, and we'll see what happens from there. But those two playoff drivers in two different scenarios as they come out of Charlotte Motor Speedway, which ends up in the hands of the 45 car of Cedric Hunter. Let's get a look at the unofficial results after 2 attempts at overtime and 205 grueling laps. Hunter the winner over Lawson Peel and Zachary Hall, Category 5 esports, getting a great start to the postseason. Steven Maggio handing out at the front and then ultimately giving up the race lead there on the white flag lap. Still ends up with a good position in 4th. Brandon Banks had a struggle in the first stage, picked up a ton of damage, got his car repaired, and locked back in. He ends up with a 5th place finish. Ross Harlow, that drama with Eric Schaefer after the checkered flag, but the 16 car comes home in P6. Richard Swavely, a surprise name given all that he had to go through, all of the damage that he picked up from his Camry throughout the course of the night. It looks like he may have a placement over the cut line coming out of Charlotte after all, with 7th. 8th place to a very strong James Kunkel, who burned up his tires, gave us a great show, led a bunch of laps. Great ending for the D Legacy Motor Club car. Ethan Fonseca Moreno ended up on a 2-tire strategy, lost a bit of track position after the first attempt at overtime, and ends up clocking in 9th, and it is a second best ever finish for Brad Fulham. Car number 19 ends up on the outskirts, or just inside the top 10.
11th place goes to Warren Cowell. Keith Steven Stempion tried his best to recover. He'll finish in 12th. Eric Schaefer will finish in 13th. Casey Knighton, non-playoff driver, in the 14th spot. Kevin Roy in 15th. Justin Erb will finish in the 16th position. Craig Parks will finish in 17th. Chris Progar will finish in the 18th spot. Kip Easley in the 19th position. Stephen Harlow, with his early troubles, will finish in 20th. And rounding out your field in 21st is going to be the 48 of Alex Muscarella. He had some trouble really early in this race and really didn't get going all that much in this one. So this leads us into our interview here. We got Cedric Hunter in Victory Lane, Kenneth.
We are joined by Cedric Hunter in Droppin' the Hammah Victory Lane for the first time this season. Cedric, you've come close, but here you finally capture the win you've been looking for, and it probably comes at the best time possible. You're locked in to the round of 12 after this win from Charlotte. How can you describe this moment after what's been a crazy season for you and your teammate Zachary Hall?
The only thing I can really say to sum it up is it's about damn time. Like it's been coming for a while. The runs, like I said in the interview earlier, the runs have been there. The finishes kind of haven't, other than like a few third place finishes or whatever. We've had the speed for the most part for the season. We've kind of just either haven't been unlucky, or there's always one or two guys that are just slightly faster. So tonight the cards kind of played in our favor. I was actually good, or really close to making it on fuel too if we went green. So and I think that there was maybe only 3 or 4 of us that were actually saving. So I would have, either Zach or I would have probably won the race if it went green on strategy. And then thank you to the 20, I guess, for throwing that block there with on the green, because that pretty much secured it for me. So shout out to him. I appreciate defending there against Lawson.
What do you make of those final attempts at overtime? From the first one where Moreno got sideways basically in front of you, you had to duck through the middle 3 wide momentarily to make up that track position, and then this second attempt at overtime where you had to face off against some pretty tough competition. I mean, Justin Urban there, Lawson Peel in there, of course, the leader you got past in the moment of Steven Maggio. How difficult was it to focus in that moment and get around those guys, place your car in the right place through those final laps?
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, I would say that like short runs and restarts and stuff like that are definitely like my weak points out of pretty much everything I do, throughout a race run. So that just by itself is nerve wracking. And then I'll say when the 87 spun the tires, that was definitely a clincher. I thought my race was probably going to be over from there, but he did a wicked job of not only kind of getting out of the way, but also saving it. I think only lost like 1 or 2 positions, so he did a really good job with that. And then when I came off of turn 2 there with 2 to go, and I was at second place and I saw the leader out there, I know that Steven's obviously a really, really good driver, and I figured he's going to try and throw a block or 2, because I mean, obviously he's trying to win as well. And I felt like he did honestly a really good job of blocking, but also being predictable and racing clean. So shout out to him, because he was also really fast. I think the pace throughout most of the night was pretty much the same. Like we had very similar strategies when it came to kind of tire conservation, and so I was pretty much either he was on my bumper, I was on his the entire night. So shout out to him for I mean, he would have, I guess, won the race if the caution didn't come out there with 5 to go.
So you've got a one-way ticket now to the Lone Star State. You get to run over Indianapolis and Watkins Glen without having to worry about your placement in the playoffs for the round of 12. Now moving on, what does the strategy entail, and how much does the approach change now that you've got your first win under your belt, and now you can start to focus in on the second round of the postseason?
Yeah, for the next 2 races, I mean, I still got to go out and try and get stage wins or even another win and stuff like that. Trying to accumulate as many bonus points as possible. I need to try and for Indy, anyways. I need to try and help Zach or do whatever I can to help him win. He's really really good there, and in my eyes, he's probably the favorite going into that race. So, uh, fingers crossed that he could get it done, and we can finally both get our wins this season. And then the Glen for me is kind of just I'm not great on road courses, and I'm even worse at the Glen. So that race I'm just going to kind of ignore and, like you said, start looking out to the next round and get myself prepared for hopefully to run it back and get another win. So.
Well, Cedric, it's a great way to finish off the regular season, a great way to kick off the playoffs here with a race victory from Charlotte. Before we let you bounce and continue the celebrations, anybody that you want to thank for tonight's run?
Absolutely. Huge thanks to my teammate Zachary Hall. Great run from him. It's been a while since we both finished up at the podium or on the podium. So kudos to him for the speed tonight. Huge shout out to Lawson there. Fast as always, obviously well deserved there on the P2. And to the league admins and everybody that set up these races. To you guys for doing always a wonderful job. And to all the fans out there for tuning in.
Well, Cedric, we appreciate the time. The name of the team is Category 5 Esports. You guys conjured up the perfect storm for your first win this evening. Congrats on the win from Charlotte. We'll see you guys at Indianapolis next week. But until then, congrats on advancing to the round of 12.
Thanks so much, man. Have a good night.
Cedric Hunter gets away with his first career drop in the Hammah Cup Series victory. A very emotional moment, getting the pass done on the white flag lap and putting on the rest of the running till the checkered flag. A great showing. And for the playoff points leader, Francisco, it's business as usual. No qualifying time, started 17th, still strong as ever. He's the runner-up, and you're caught up with him.
It's a P2 effort, Lawson, and you had a great battle there in the final stage with a couple of drivers there, and ultimately it wound up a P2 effort. Just kind of talk us through what it was like in the battle there and having to work in those multiple green-white checkered attempts.
Yeah, it was a hell of a battle there for a lot of the race. So, those green-white checkers. That first one, I was set up perfectly coming out of 2 as the caution came out. I had gotten to Herbs inside, and I was going to drive by him, and I was going to have 3 full corners to get after Steven there without having too much pressure. And then the caution came out, and then that second restart, I just had inches beside Herb, and he wanted to kind of get down there and close it off, and I couldn't afford to really let him in. I mean, I knew that if he got down in front of me, that Cedric was just going to fly by like he did, and so I just had to do everything I could to force the inside there. And I think if I just tried to add a little bit more, he wouldn't have tried to take it. But so that second one just didn't work, but still happy with second, and probably no better than what I feel like I should have finished tonight. So Ethan and Maggio were doing a good job there. They had the thing going where they were saving tires for a few laps, and then just really coming on strong after 15 laps or so. And I just couldn't figure out really how to do that like they were doing it. I was trying. I think I did a good job that the run right where Steven and I had the wreck on the front stretch, right when we were about to pit. I had kept pace with him pretty good, and I felt like I had matched my tires with him about the best I had all night, and was in a pretty good position to maybe get back around them before we pit or pit and be in a good spot. So I hated that happen, but I only had 9 seconds of damage. It didn't hurt me too bad, didn't hurt Steven too bad. I think he kind of recovered, and Ethan spun the tires there that second to last restart, and that kind of killed his chances and gave me a chance, but that next caution didn't help me. So, but all in all, a fun race. Battled really hard with those guys, so enjoyed that. Glad we didn't wreck, and just happy to start the playoffs off with a P2.
It's a great points effort from yourself tonight, Lawson. And now we move on to Indianapolis and Watkins Glen, some of your better performing racetracks. So what are your goals going into those racetracks, and what are you looking forward to as far as your playoff performances into the next handful of races before the round of 12?
Yeah, I love both of those tracks a lot, and Jeff Gordon fan growing up, so Indy has a special place in my heart. And hadn't raced the next gen there in at least a better part of 6 months to a year. But from what I can remember, all four corners handle differently and drive differently, and then that's one of those tracks. After about 10 or 12 laps, the tires really go away. So I think tires are going to be a big factor. And yeah, should be a great race. And then moving on to Watkins Glen after that, try to have a good run there as well, and just keep the momentum going through the playoffs.
I'll help you cycle your memory. The last time you raced at Indy, you won back in the 4-wide series. I remember that race. You drove right by me.
Yeah, and that was I was proud. I was proud of that win. That was one of my harder fought ones, and to go up there and take that one from Brandon Hawken that night felt good to outrun him and just kind of beat him straight up. So, yeah, it's going to be big about driving technique, taking care of your tires, and yeah, these next gens are going to be finicky on that track. Just kind of single groove-ish, but I think it'll be a great race.
And before we let you go here, Lawson, we'll give you the opportunity to give the shout-outs to everybody that makes this happen for you and everybody on your team.
Yeah, thanks to you guys, KBueno Racing Network. Thanks to the admin group, Kunkel, Progar, Stimpian, Alex, and everybody that helps them out, Race Control, Travis. Yeah, thanks to my DBR teammates. And yeah, congrats to Cedric on getting the win tonight. He's had one coming for a while, and I think been very deserving of one. So he's raced me very respectful and had a lot of fun racing with him and Zach all season. So been enjoying racing with them in this league. And yeah, Cedric's had one coming for a while. So congrats to him.
Appreciate the time you take with us, Lawson, and we hope to see you out there at Indianapolis.
All right, we'll see you guys later.
That's Lawson Peel's second place finish here. Obviously not the win that he probably wanted, but still a very solid way to kick off the playoffs for 2025. We are now joined by the other end of the Category 5 esports team. That is Zachary Hall, driver of the number 23. And Zachary, it was another wild finish here in the series, and for the third straight time in intermediate, we happened to end up in overtime. You were kind of in the middle of all that, chasing down Hall, Peel, and the race leader at the time in Steven Maggio. What went through your mind as you guys were taking that final attempt at overtime with 2 to go?
Well, yeah, it was nerve-wracking because really I was just trying to get through this thing with the top 5. I didn't really feel like I had race winning speed all night, so I was like, man, if we can just get out of here with 5th and with the stage points we got, it'll really set us up for some good races coming with the next 2. And that restart coming down the end, it was really just put the power down to the racetrack, and then I saw the 20 and the 9 kind of 20 covers off the 9 there, and I was like, oh, this might be my door to go around the outside. And I think the 20 got up the racetrack with maybe some contact, and then I kind of had to cut back down. Luckily, I was able to get back down in front, I think, the 5, and we made some contact to my rear bumper. I held on to it, and then kind of in 3 and 4, I don't know how I did it, but I went from 3 wide from a couple rows back to like 4th. So I kind of really made up a lot of time by just hitting 3 and 4 right on, coming to the white flag, and that really propelled me to get up to 3rd, really.
So a solid run here from Charlotte. I was sort of going to ask about the initial strategy between you and Hunter to top off on gas, and you guys were kind of saving fuel, and then that caution comes out and it breaks up the entirety of the rhythm. But you came into this race right on the cut line in 12th without any bonus points to your play. 3rd place finish here tonight from Charlotte. How big is that as you guys walk to Indianapolis next week?
Oh, it's huge. I felt like of the 3 tracks in this round, this was probably like my worst one. So I was really kind of coming to this one just saying if I could just get solid points, and qualifying good, sitting up on the front row, I think that helped. But definitely learned a few things and kind of got to figure out a few more things heading into these next round. Well, I can't say next rounds because we got to get through it first, but heading into these next 2 races, and hopefully we can capitalize off some good points here tonight.
Cedric Hunter told us in Victory Lane that you're probably the odds-on favorite to go ahead and win Indianapolis if it's not Lawson Peel. I'm going to throw this out there. Are we kind of giving any calling shots, or are we just going to figure out what happens next Sunday?
I would love to call my shot. I would, but I'm going to be honest, the confidence is about as low as it's ever been on iRacing lately. So we're going to go there with, happiness, because I really love that racetrack. It's probably my favorite track on the sim. It just really takes hitting your marks every single lap, doing the same thing over and over and being precise. And I think that's one of the things I'm actually really good at. And it also really wears the tires out there too. So I think the long runs will be critical if we can get those. And I'm not gonna call them a shot, but if anything, I'm hoping top 3 and hopefully bound for a win if anything. So like I said.
Well, hey, it was worth a try to ask. But Zachary, a great run tonight from Charlotte Motor Speedway. Good jump in the point standings for the playoffs as it's concerned. Right before we let you go here from Concord, North Carolina, anyone that you want to thank for tonight's finishing position?
Yeah, first off, I want to shout out to my teammate Cedric. I'm so glad he got that win, man. We were so stoked. It's been a long time since me and him have gotten the finishes that I feel like we deserve. So it was really cool to see him get that done because I know he was super quick there at the end, just couldn't find a way around those guys. But luckily, the cautions fell his way there, I guess. So congrats to him. Thank you guys up in the booth for all y'all do. It's always a pleasure to go back and watch the broadcast back. I can't wait to see how this one all shook out from the outside view. And then last but not least, shout out to everybody here at the league and the league admins that put it on here.
Well, Zachary, we appreciate the kind words as always, and we always appreciate any time you get to talk with us here in the booth. Congratulations on the 3rd place finish. We'll see you in the rest of the field at Indianapolis next Sunday.
Thanks, guys.
So Zachary Hall closes out the top 3 here from Charlotte Motor Speedway, and then we move Indianapolis, the Brickyard, to host the next race of the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series playoffs, our middle race in the round of 16. And Francisco, one storyline that we're going to have to slowly creep onto is the new update for iRacing that will come in the next handful of weeks between Indy and Watkins Glen. Most likely, maybe will come earlier than that, as we'll try to get confirmation on when that iRacing update will come about. But that involves a new aero model and a new tire model for the NASCAR Next Gen car, which means if the drivers had learned a ton from race 1 to race 15, they got to learn this car all over again to try and run for a championship.
Yeah, learning the car all over again in the playoffs is going to be a huge shakeup. Now, I don't know if it'll shake up the order that much, but it certainly could throw a wrench into how races are run, the different strategies that you might have to call on these racetracks. We saw tonight how close everybody was able to stay to one another when they were on level tires. That might not be the same going forward. We'll just have to see when all that sorts up and we get access to the updates in a couple weeks' time. We know that it's supposed to arrive somewhere around Watkins Glen, though I'm not sure on the road course we'll see too much of a difference as far as what normally happens. I think the biggest thing is when we do show up to Texas Motor Speedway in June 22nd. That's probably the first real taste we'll have of these updates in effect to start the round of 12. So everybody's going to be looking forward to that Texas date with the new updates and seeing how the races pan out. From there on out, it's mostly intermediate tracks, save for Bristol and Talladega. So it's really going to be important. So for whoever masters the new updates at these intermediate racetracks, that could be how the championship is determined when we get to Homestead in mid-August. And really great racing here tonight from Charlotte. We'll have probably some good racing at Indianapolis. I'll be watching after the Metallica show next week. Kenneth, I hope you put on a good one.
It'll be a lot of fun when we go to the Brickyard next Sunday. That is June 8th at 8 p.m. Eastern. You'll find the coverage right here on the KBueno Racing Network. But for now, it's all celebratory moments for Cedric Hunter, capturing his first career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series victory, and is the first driver confirmed into the round of 12. For Steven Stepien, Chris Progar, and the entire crew at the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series for putting on these shows, and for all of the lovely people at the KBueno Racing Network, for Eli Comerford, Charlie Beyer, Keelan Belsha, and for my colleague in the booth tonight, Francisco Bacallao, I'm Kenneth Bueno, waving so long from Charlotte. Cedric Hunter, a first career victory as the field heads to Indianapolis for the second race of the playoffs.